VLR.
Welcome to the Saturday Night Cigar Lounge.
And it is a very nice Saturday night here in the great state of Texas and the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Thank you for being here for Saturday Night Cigar Lounge here on Vigilant Liberty Radio. I'm your host, Taylor Millard. And boy, this week has been absolutely positively insane. A lot of weird stuff going on, a lot of bizarre stuff going on, and we're basically going to start from the very beginning and look at the latest news that came out before we get through everything else, and that would be the Rick Perry indictment here in Texas. A purely political move, which folks need to realize before they even start celebrating or freaking out. It's a purely political move, and it is the sport of Texas politics. Now, before we get into that, I do want to remind folks that coming up in just a few minutes, we're going to have Something Fishy. Felicia Craven, she's been paying attention to everything that's been going on in Ferguson. And then you will get to hear my conversation with Catharsis, who had a run-in with the crew over at Twitchy this week because she didn't like the latest video by James O'Keefe. And I do know that everyone was kind of split on how good that video was. Some people thought it was great. Some people didn't think it was that good. So there you go. She made a comment about not liking it, and folks got a little mad. Also, in the second hour, and I'm looking forward to this, we have Red Stephen Miller joining us. So that should be fun. I'm looking forward to that conversation, as is everybody else. So that should be really fun. That should be really good. But let's start with the latest news, obviously, which is the indictment of Rick Perry. The grand jury indicted him yesterday on Friday, and what they did was they indicted him on 2 felony accounts. One of them has to do with abuse of power. The other has to do with coercion. Now, this is what it all stems from. So let's lay everything out, and we'll actually use Perry's own words to explain what happened too. But this is what happened. Last year, Travis County District Attorney Rosemary Lindbergh was arrested for DUI. She was caught driving 3 times over the legal limit. Now, Travis County is the same county that I affectionately call the People's Republic of Travis County, because of how basically how liberal it is, how statist it is. It's pretty bad. But Lindbergh was arrested for being 3 times over the legal limit for smacking into things. In fact, you know something? You know what's best? Let's have Perry. We'll let Rick Perry explain exactly what the problem with Rosemary Lindbergh was. This is a comment that he made today.
Here's what I think is really important for the people to understand, not just in Texas, but this country. And that is, we have seen an office in the form of the Travis County District Attorney's Office, the lead legal individual for criminal affairs in this county and overseeing public officials who conducted themselves in an incredibly inappropriate way, stopped for a DWI with a blood alcohol level almost 3 times the legal limit. An individual who, when booked in, had to be restrained, was abusive to law enforcement, was kicking the door. I think Americans and Texans who have seen this agree with me that that is not an individual who is heading up an office that we can afford to fund.
Now, the office that he's talking about is the Public Integrity Unit. And the Travis County District Attorney runs the Public Integrity Unit. Now, why do they run it? Well, a lot of it, I think, has to do with the fact that that is where the Capitol is located. It's located in Travis County. The city of Austin is located in Travis County. So that would be probably why the Public Integrity Unit is being run by Travis County. So here's what Perry said to her. He said, look, you need to resign because you were arrested and convicted. She pled guilty and was given 45 days in jail and served half of it. You were convicted of a felony. You need to step down. Not indicted on a felony, convicted of a felony, where there's obviously evidence there. I mean, people have seen the booking photos. People have seen the video. People have seen her kick the door. You know, this isn't sources saying this. This is video that's been released of Rosemary Lindbergh. So that happens. And he says to her, you need to step down. If you don't step down, I'm not funding the Travis County Public Integrity Unit. Which makes sense. It's Texas politics. It's one of those situations where it's Texas politics. That's the only way to describe it. Lindbergh wouldn't resign. Lindbergh said, no, I'm not going to resign. So Perry vetoed the funding. Now, I want to read what the Texas Constitution says about the governor's ability to defund stuff. It's very important. This is what the Texas Constitution says. It says, every bill which shall have passed both houses of the legislature shall be presented to the governor for his approval. If he shall approve, he shall sign it. But if he disapprove it, he shall return it, with his objections to the house in which it originated, which the house shall then enter the objections at large upon its journal and proceed to reconsider it. If after such reconsideration 2/3 of the members present agree to pass the bill, it shall be sent with the objections to the other house, by which likewise it shall be reconsidered. And if approved by 2/3 of the members of that house, it shall become a law. But in such cases, the votes of both houses shall be determined by yeas and nays, and the names of the members voting for and against the bill shall be entered on the journal of each house respectively. If any bill shall not be returned by the governor within his objections within 10 days, Sundays accepted, after it shall be presented to him, the same shall be a law in like matter as if he had signed it, unless the legislature by its adjournment prevents its return, in which case it shall be a law, unless he shall file the same with his objections in the office of the Secretary of State, and give notice, therefore, by public proclamation within 20 days after adjournment. Now, here's the next part of it. If any bill presented to the governor contains several items of appropriation, he may object to one or more such items and approve the other portions of the bill. Basically, it's a line item veto. It says that he can do. Now, this is the important part. If the legislature be in session, he shall transmit to the House in which the bill originated a copy of such statement, and the items objected shall be considered. If on reconsideration one or more of such items be approved of by 2/3 of the members present of each house, the same shall be part of the law, notwithstanding the objections of the governor. So this is what it says. Perry vetoed it, and the legislature, if they had wanted to, they could have said, no, we want this public integrity unit to be funded. They could have said that. The legislature could have said, we're going to fund this. But they didn't. Why didn't they do it? They didn't do it because obviously they agreed with Perry that because Lindbergh is a convicted felon, she shouldn't be the head of the office, and the office shouldn't be funded. This is purely, this entire thing is the sport of Texas politics. It really is. Now, one of the things that folks need to realize about Rosemary Lindbergh is she's not, this is more than just DWI, okay? This is much more than DWI. Earlier this year, in fact, on July 15th, she was sued by a former top prosecutor of Travis County who said that she fired him because he triggered a Texas Rangers review of her actions when he reported that she tried to pressure him into protecting an Austin police homicide detective under 2 internal affairs reviews. So, Steve Brand, who was a ADA since 2006, he said that he was fired for that. Now, there are a couple of things that are important to realize in this case. Brand says that Brand was fired, and Lindbergh says that he was fired because he made some comments in court that Lindbergh said she found racially offensive. In reality, what he said was he said that a prospective juror should be dismissed from the jury because she had an NAACP membership, and he apparently compared it to the KKK. He said being a member of the NAACP is akin to being a member of the KKK if that both of those should be considered. So you can take that into effect. Now, the other thing that the lawyer said, that Brand said, was basically, no, nobody had a problem with it. The judge didn't have a problem with it. Nobody had a problem with it, except for one lawyer. So that's in the weeds. That's a little weird, murky situation. But in reality, Lindbergh's no glamorous person here. The other one who's not exactly a glamorous person here is the man who served as the special prosecutor in the case. The man who investigated this entire situation. Now, this is what ended up happening here. Earlier this year, in fact, actually, and I have to thank Dana Lash for pointing this out, because I didn't know this. Earlier this year, Mike McCrum was accused of telling a witness to get lost for a while during a trial so prosecutors would not recall her. And he lost a bid to disqualify a judge from overseeing his contempt hearing. So he basically got said, hey, he basically got told that he was in contempt of court for doing that. And so that happened, even though he supposedly had an impeccable record, who never had a single grievance filed against him. It was now. What's really funny is that what First Assistant District Attorney Cliff Herberg said. This is in Bexar County. He said that the contempt of court motion was filed because of an ethical obligation and was no way politically motivated. I love the entire sport of Texas politics. It's insane. It's crazy. It's fun. And I love Perry's reaction to this because Perry has called it. He's been fierce in defending his point of view on this. He's been very fierce. He's been fighting back the narrative, basically, that Democrats are trying to give, or some Democrats are trying to give, including Joaquin Castro, who made an absolutely ridiculous statement last night. But here's how he characterized it, how Perry characterized it today.
We don't settle political differences with indictments in this country. It is outrageous that some would use partisan political theatrics to rip away at the very fabric of our state's Constitution. This indictment amounts to nothing more than abuse of power. And I cannot and I will not allow that to happen. I intend to fight against those who would erode our state's Constitution and laws purely for political purposes, and I intend to win. I'll explore every legal avenue to expedite this matter and bring it to a swift conclusion. I'm confident that we will ultimately prevail, that this farce of a prosecution will be revealed for what it is, and those responsible will be held accountable.
That's a perfect response. That is a perfect response to give. And honestly, he's absolutely correct here. And folks who have listened to this show, who've listened to Saturday Night Cigar Lounge before, they know that I have political problems with Perry. I think he has major issue with cronyism. I think the Texas Enterprise Fund is basically a way for him to bribe companies to come to Texas, and I have a major problem with that. I think that he has major issues with CIPRIT, which is the Cancer and Prevention Research Institute of Texas. I think that when it was created, it had a noble goal, but I think that in no way should it have been created, because that, again, has cronyism issues. I think the Trans-Texas Corridor is a horrible thing that he pushed and had eminent domain issues and had cronyism issues. And I think that the Gardasil thing that he tried to do early in his tenure is a bad idea. So I have major problems with Rick Perry. But this indictment is purely political and shouldn't have happened, and is absolutely, positively ridiculous. Totally ridiculous. And it just frustrates me. It frustrates me beyond belief. Again, it's the sport of Texas politics. I should expect it. But, again, it boggles my mind. And I got to give a shout-out to @SemperBanU, the letter U, for pointing out something else. A story that was in the Austin Chronicle. It was actually an interview with somebody who did a biography of Ann Richards. And he pointed out something. The author pointed out something that was very, very important. The Austin Chronicle asked him, did the writing of the book change your perspective or judgment of her? And he said, yeah. The way that her legacy took off, Ann Richards' legacy administration took off, it seemed almost heroic. They were going to do everything. They got the blueprint for Texas written. But here's where this came in. And tell me if this is similar to what Rick Perry did. When Richards came in, there was a mess at the insurance commission. The insurance companies would make a rate request. They knew it was higher than what they would get, and the insurance commissioners knew what they really wanted, and the companies would get everything they wanted every time. She came in and said, I want these commissioners to resign because it's a mess, and if you don't, I'm going to put it in receivership. Lieutenant Governor Bob Bullock figured out she was going to do that, and it pissed him off because he wasn't informed she was going to do that. The point person at the commission, the one person who became the face of the commission for this new governor, was Jimmy Sexton, a football hero, an All-American running back for Darrell Royal at University of Texas. There was all this folklore about him chasing down jackrabbits when he was a kid. So all of the people to take on this white good old boy establishment, it ended up being aimed at him, which was a pretty brave thing of her to do. He decided politics isn't my game, so he left. And they did get some control of that commission. So let me ask you something. What's the difference between Ann Richards going to the Insurance Commission and say that she was going to put that in receivership? And then they would have to put it into receivership if they didn't resign. Now, for those wondering what the definition of receivership is, a type of corporate bankruptcy in which a receiver is appointed by bankruptcy courts or creditors to run the company. The receiver may be appointed by a bankruptcy court as a matter of private proceedings or by a governing body. In most cases, the receiver is given ultimate decision-making powers and has full discretion in deciding how the received ashes will be managed. Basically, she was saying, I'm going to put it in receivership and get new people in. So what's the difference between what Perry did and what Richards did? Sure doesn't seem like a lot. Sure doesn't seem like a lot. But the entire thing obviously is political, because Rick Perry said to Rosemary Lindbergh, you will resign. If you don't resign, I'm cutting the funding. And when she didn't resign, he cut the funding. That's why he got indicted. It's purely political. Is it right? Depends on who you talk to. Is he going to serve prison time? I doubt it. But I've been wrong before. Coming up next, Felicia Craven, something fishy to talk about what's going on in Ferguson. And then you'll hear from Catharsis about her fun situation with Twitchy. It's all here on Saturday Night Cigar Lounge here on Vigilant Liberty Radio. I'm your host, Taylor Millard. We'll be right back.
This is the Pint-Sized Pundit, and I am here to tell you that anything Taylor says on Saturday Night Cigar Lounge is his opinion and his opinion only. He does not speak for his employer, his employer's employer, or anyone else. He especially doesn't speak for Liz unless she says so.
We want to welcome Michael Moore to Occupy Wall Street. I'm so impressed by what I'm seeing here.
How much of people's income do you, Michael Moore, want the government to confiscate?
Probably twice what we're paying right now.
It's not envy, it's war.
Where's the rage? Where's the uprising?
Storm the doors of the New York Stock Exchange.
It is a class war.
If the wealthy paid their fair share. For a documentary filmmaker, I do really well. I'm very blessed.
And the rich thought poverty was bad.
I do well.
They get rid of it.
What pure? There's nothing pure about capitalism.
And they know what's coming on Wall Street.
We're seeing the end of capitalism. And I say good riddance.
He is one of my favorite capitalists. Yeah, I want to give him a hug.
My name is Dustin Hoyt from America Our Way, and you can hear me and lots of great other original shows right here on Vigilant Liberty Radio. You're listening to Saturday Night Cigar Lounge with Taylor right here on Vigilant Liberty Radio.
Back here on Saturday Night Cigar Lounge here on Vigilant Liberty Radio. A little garbage. The good kind of garbage. The band Garbage. Shirley Manson and Company. Butch Vig is one of my favorite drummers. out there, by the way. He does an excellent job. He's a good producer, too. But joining me now is Felicia Cravens, Something Fishy from Free Radical Network. How are you doing, Fishy?
It's hot, Taylor.
We got rain up here in Dallas. I don't know what you're talking about.
You're so mean. I never get rain anymore.
You got to meet Nick Searcy. How is it that you're complaining?
Well, no, Nick Searcy got to meet me.
Okay.
Yeah, let's put this into perspective here.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a great thing. I just found out yesterday afternoon he came to town, and yay, I got to go. And yeah, that doesn't last very long, that bounce. Not when you're watching all the events in Ferguson.
Yeah. So tell me what you saw last night, because you were up until 4 a.m. watching this stuff.
At least 4 a.m. The crowds were still out on the street well past 4 a.m. It started, for me, when I got home, I checked the feed. I've been monitoring several accounts, and I was checking my feed to make sure that nothing major was happening, and it was pretty much a block party atmosphere. And people were riding on cars up and down. It was like, teenagers doing the drag, something like that. It really looked like that. There wasn't a lot of police presence. And at one point, it sounded like a gunshot or fireworks went off, and people started scattering really quickly. But the organizers were telling them to hold their positions, even as they were just driving up and down the road. Well, quickly after that point, sometimes shortly after midnight, things somehow got tense very quickly. The protesters were approaching the line of the police. The police were moving forward. Apparently, there was some canister of smoke or gas of some sort that went out into the crowd. People got confused. And then in the blink of an eye, after all this party, after all this positive atmosphere, horns honking, people looking like more of a celebration of being able to get out on the street and protest. In the blink of an eye, people started running for businesses and breaking into them. 3 businesses at first, and then another, at least one more later. Almost immediately after that happened, the press started over into that area. And some of the people that were there in those lots doing the looting or right around the looters were chasing the press out, rushing on them and threatening them. So they got as much footage, different crews got as much footage as they could. And then soon after that, lines of protesters formed in front of the stores, keeping people out. And it was pretty amazing.
Hang on a second. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you said lines of protesters were keeping people out. They were trying to keep looters from coming in?
Yes, they were trying to keep people from entering the stores and stealing. Specifically, the liquor store was where the media ended up concentrating. As soon as that group of people got into position, then the looters dispersed, were out of the way, and it was just the protesters there protecting the business. And the media then returned and started interviewing people. There was one guy who was on the phone with his mother trying to let her know he was safe and there was nothing going on. And he had a reporter actually talk to his mother to let him know, or to let her know that he was all right. And he was, the words he said was he was being very responsible. And then they went to check, the reporters that I was watching, the feed I was watching, they went to check some of the other businesses, talked to people on the street. They got threatened a couple of times. They got intimidating words. People didn't want their faces filmed. But they didn't want their faces filmed, they said, because other people who had been nearby when looting had happened had their pictures put on the news with the words looters underneath the name, and so, or underneath the face. And so they were being very careful. After a while, though, maybe an hour and a half later, after that protective row had been formed, somehow it dispersed. And when the reporters returned, people were just walking into the store, grabbing what they wanted and leaving. And right next door to that, in the parking lot, next door to the liquor store, were a bunch of people standing around drinking out of bottles. Just insane. Part of the things that just surprised me about it. It happened so instantaneously. The change from what looked like a party atmosphere to a confrontational atmosphere to a looting situation. The organizers were doing their best to separate themselves from the people that were looting. The protesters, most of the protesters, it seemed, at the point that the looting started, left the scene. They didn't want to be in the vicinity. But the few that remained were the ones that were out there attempting to protect the businesses as long as they could. And then at some point, I guess they got driven off, or they had to leave, or they worried about their safety. That was another thing, watching it the whole night. It always felt, after that first looting incident, it always felt as though it could turn nasty, really nasty, at any moment. The police kept issuing statements that the crowd needed to disperse, or they would be subject to arrests or other measures. And they never explained what or other measures were, but the crowd believed it was tear gas. And they were trying to prepare for that. But at any time, it felt like that could have erupted into violence. And I'm very, very thankful that it didn't. I've been monitoring the feeds of people that are there, people that are reporters that are there, people that are residents that are there, people just connected to the urban networks online. And it's been amazing. Today, it seemed like there was going to be some positive things coming out of the governor's press conference. And then the governor announced that there's a midnight curfew, which is 3.5 hours. And from now, and it's a 5-hour curfew to keep until 5 a.m. And that there's a media staging area that's going to be created, which to the people online sounded like a media corralling area where they would keep the media and not allow them to go anywhere else. I'm not certain of that last statement, if that is the belief that was out there after the press conference. The governor said that the most important thing in order to achieve justice was to establish peace, which is playing right off of the net of an opposite of the slogan that you're hearing from protesters, which you've heard for years: no justice, no peace. And the final thing I think that really concerned me over the whole thing this evening that's going to happen, it looks like anything can provoke something. 12:01 a.m. is going to come, and we're going to see what happens at that point. Are the police going to step up their presence again? Are they going to attempt to work with people walking around? Is there a need for a 12 o'clock curfew? There are a lot of questions around this, and it seems to come down to this. And this is, I think, the stumbling block that is probably the impasse that we have. The organizers, the people that are on the street, the protesters are saying that they believe that justice is defined by the indictment and the arrest of the officer that shot Michael Brown. That is their definition of justice, and anything short of that is probably going to lead to more of the same, more of the things we've seen, more people in the streets, more attempts to demonstrate, more attempts to manage demonstrations while there are other elements within the groups attempting to riot or to loot or to instigate violence. It's that thing that is going to be the sticking point. The process for what happens when an officer is involved in a shooting is, an administrative one. The people on the ground do not have faith that the department can carry that out, that administrative function of the investigation. I don't know who they're asking to do it, but anyone other than Ferguson and St. Louis County PD is what they're asking for. And that seems to be the point at which things stand right now, the stumbling block. There is not going to be any movement. The officers apparently left the area even. Some of the rumors have it. So it's a mess. It's a nasty mess. And it's going to continue to be a nasty mess. And I'm afraid that it's become a dangerous game of one-upsmanship, where the one side will react in a certain way to something the other side did. So that side reacts to something the other side did. I'm not what is the word I'm looking for? Making an equivalency between the police and the protesters or anything like that. I'm just saying that those two forces are aligned against each other, and they seem to be in this response cycle.
One of the things I was a little interesting was, the discussion when it comes to militarizing the police. And how, we saw the images earlier this week of the police dressed in full riot gear, pointing guns at protesters. There's the sniper. There's the picture of the sniper, staring down the barrel of his gun, just waiting, in case he had to do something. Now, you said, from what I can tell, that it was good that the police didn't come in.
I don't think there was a way for them to do so and not have it escalate matters last night. And I know that's very sad for the business owners, and I feel badly for them. And the rumor is tonight that the police are guarding businesses up and down the area. And I saw a bus with a bunch of police officers coming out with just helmets and regular uniforms tonight. So it looks at least as though the visuals are a little bit different.
Antonio French, has been doing an excellent job at keeping an eye out on what this was going on. Antonio French is a St. Louis alderman, or a city councilman, whatever you want to call him. And he actually made the exact same comment you made. He said, police not coming in at this point, even with the looting, was a good thing. It would have gotten very violent. And what I really like is again, you said this and he said this. Protesters quickly arrived and blocked the entrance and said, "We're better than this. This isn't a protest."
Right, and I think the people that are in this situation who are attempting to talk about the issues of a bad reputation in a police force that they don't trust, and that in the community there's this serious disconnect there, I think it's appropriate to be talking about having the police exercise extra restraint and allowing the protesters to go in and make these gestures, these movements to protect the community themselves, and let the world see that. Every camera that they could find in the area was there covering that. And the media wasn't hiding that. There are some people who are alleging that they didn't show that, but they did. They interviewed these people at length. They talked to them. They got all of the story out of them. What was their goal? Why were they standing there? What were they hoping to accomplish? They spent time showing that there were people among the protesters who were serious about maintaining it as a protest and not as an opportunity to riot. And those well-meaning people are getting cheated out of the acknowledgement of the good that they're doing by folks who are just spouting off the first thing they think, or all this is about riot, looting, and just being jerks, people being jerks coming in. The rumors have been too that Chicago area people, it's only a few hours away, Chicago area people have been coming in and attempting to take advantage. And some people are alleging on one side that the police are trying to incite behavior out of the protesters. The protesters are countering with that the police are attempting to incite the protesters so that they can over-respond. It's really crazy.
Yeah, and let's be honest, the police, regardless if it turns out that this shooting was justified, the Michael Brown shooting was justified or not, and right now, we can make guesses, but we still don't know all the facts yet. We know more of them, we don't know all of them. And what we're looking at, honestly, is the fact that the police have not done a good job at PR. They've done horrible PR. And they've had a horrible response to it. And it hadn't helped at all.
And it didn't last. Wednesday, the protests were the tear gas protests, where they were shooting canisters of tear gas into neighborhoods where people were out on their lawns and being told to disperse, and they're in their property. And then you had Thursday, where the police it was a completely different thing. It was the troopers that were there, and there was a completely different atmosphere. They were walking and marching with the protesters, helping them to do what they wanted to do. And then Friday, we're back to the confrontation and the riot gear and the overwhelming police presence. What begins to happen, and I think Radley Belka really addressed this, what begins to happen is you have this response where if you make a statement like you must disperse and the crowd does not disperse, what do you do as a officer of the peace? Do you stand there and take it and look like you're powerless? Or do you consider that a measured response to give the crowd time to finish? Or do you go in and try to gain the respect out of fear of the protesters? It's a horrible situation that everybody's been put in. Yeah. Everyone has been put in. But the people that have the ability to change the tone are the police. It really lies in their hands.
Yeah, and I'm just not a big fan of what on what's being done. I'm really not a big fan of what the police are doing. You know, there's a difference between trying to maintain order and doing what they've been doing and completely cracking down. Right. There's a big problem with it.
Well, and as a protest organizer of very different types of protest, I still don't have any kind of concept personally of what it must be like to be on opposite sides of a effective war zone from the police. Every time I've ever had interaction with them, it's always been helpful, friendly. And I mean, people might even talk about that being my white privilege, whatever. But the deal is that I can't put myself in the shoes of the protesters as easily because I've never been in that confrontational relationship. I can't see it through their eyes. I can't look at my life or my neighborhood and say there's been a pattern of abuse or that there's been a suspected pattern of abuse by the police or the officials in the area. So many of us from the outside looking in, we really should think before we talk about this, even in terms of what people want to do or what they're trying, what the motives are.
Yeah.
I really don't like hearing all the inflammatory, well, look at what you got here, and trying to put people in the wrong for people who are obviously passionate about an issue, have serious concerns, want them addressed, but might not be going about them the most logical or reasonable way because of the emotion involved.
Yeah. Felicia, we got to go. Thank you so much for being on. You can find her at Something Fishy with an IE, and be sure to read her stuff at freeradicalnetwork.com. This is Saturday Night Cigar Lounge. I'm your host, Taylor Millard. We'll be back right after this. Coming up next, Catharsis is talking. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Missy Bordius. Join me as I share my womanly bits on the Conservative Feminist Show, 11 p.m. on Fridays, here on Vigilant Liberty Radio.
Hey, this is Alfonso Rachel with 20 Pound Sledge and PJTV Zone Nation, and you're listening to VLR.
here on Saturday Night Cigar Lounge here on Vigilant Liberty Radio. Coming up at the top of next hour, I'm looking forward to this. Stephen Miller, otherwise known as Red Steez, is going to be on. He's got some thoughts about Ferguson, and we're going to talk about Iraq as well. So, should be fun. The last time he was on, it was a dandy, and I expect it to be another dandy. But joining me tonight, or right now, I say tonight because it is about 9 o'clock in the evening where she is, as we're talking, is someone who raised the ire of, well, Twitchy this week, which shows the kind of bizarro week that it's been, considering the fact that she's been featured on Twitchy in a positive way before. And that would be Catharsis. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
It's been a bizarro week, hasn't it?
It's been crazy. Since Monday, it's been nonstop.
Yes, and it doesn't help that I will give you credit for this. In your tweets towards James O'Keefe that Twitchy, grabbed. At least you had the American spellings there and not the British spellings.
You don't know how hard that is. They're so anti-American in my jobs that every time I use a Z or an O without the U, we have a whole big mess.
Yeah. Katie lives in Oxford, right?
Yes.
After after being born and raised, I guess raised in the States at least, and then married a Brit, so...
Actually, is a Hungarian.
Okay, married a Hungarian who lives in Britain.
Yeah.
So, there we go.
Yeah, I'm actually originally from Indiana, and then I spent some time in D.C.
So, there we go. But, okay, so I have to, because this has just been, what I don't even know how to explain this week except for bizarro, but basically what happened was you said that James O'Keefe, you weren't very impressed with James O'Keefe's latest video. And you said so. And Twitchy had a problem with it.
Oh, they had a huge problem. And unimpressed is a very politically correct way to put it. That's very nice.
I don't know how. I mean, okay, I'll tell you that I was unimpressed by it. I mean, I'm here in Texas, and obviously, the border thing has been a big thing.
Oh, yeah.
And, when I saw that video, I was like, okay, how does that help?
That is, I think that's the spot-on remark right there. It doesn't really do much or add much or say much.
It's nothing new.
It's less than nothing new. I mean, there's nothing in there that would have been anything old, really. I mean, we all know these certain things. We're all aware of them. And, man, the whole border issue has really been amped up the last month. So going to an obscure area of Texas, presumably, and crossing a tiny little creek, I don't think is going to, or shouldn't, I think for the informed population, shouldn't be a surprise or shocking or anything.
If I'm not mistaken, there was a King of the Hill episode in the 1990s that had the exact same thing.
Oh my gosh, you're bringing it back now. Wow.
I can't help it. But, okay, were you surprised at what was kind of the reaction that you got to that? To your tweets, especially after the Twitchy article?
Oh, well, before the Twitchy article, I got the standard people who are staunch defenders of whoever that they're following, no matter what. They see something that O'Keefe's responded to, and then they respond to me without looking over my tweets before that, without knowing me, or anything along those lines. And it's the pretty standard, you liberal, you this, you that, you must hate America, you must hate freedom, you must love amnesty. And I'm like, okay. That's pretty par for the course when you go after someone who's well known at a particular level. The Twitchy article actually surprised me a bit. I wasn't expecting that one, and I wasn't expecting some of the comments. And I did avoid a lot of the comment section until just today, actually, to go see what actually happened there. It appears that I'm very liberal, and anybody in the comment section who was trying to say, no, she's a conservative, even though they were trying to say it ironically because they were a liberal, is shot down because I must be a liberal simply because I disagree with O'Keefe. I find that fascinating.
Well, especially because if you look at and you've been covered on Twitchy before, featured on Twitchy before. In fact, from April 15th, when Mark Murray tweeted, political scientists believe TV ads have an impact on public opinion when one side has unilateral control over the airwaves. Your comment, I don't think unilateral control means what you think it means.
Yeah?
Let's see. You had why in June of last year, okay, this is last year, but, still, in June of last year, you ended up being featured on Twitchy asking Joan Walsh, instead of going after a main character from 20 years ago, why not simply investigate the story? Why hate it if you can disprove? Seriously, Joan Walsh, how comes people's past can be forgiven and others not? Would I hold you to what you were 20 years ago? Never. And in January of this year, let's see, Alec Baldwin said, you listen to the high-pitched plaintive whine in Christie's voice, what do you hear? Your comment, his best impression of you?
Oh, Adam. Alec Baldwin is a bit of he's a fun one because he does a lot in the arts sector, and so it's interesting because he'll actually come to speaking events, or when I was in DC, the Kennedy Center, and I normally would post about him or to him right before he'd attend.
But the point is that Twitchy ought to know who you are. At least you think they would.
Well, I don't know who's actually in charge of it. I know they used to. I've actually had conversations with the Twitchy Twitter account before, and I'm pretty sure that I've known people who've worked for Twitchy before, so I'm assuming there's been some turnover there.
Right.
And I did go away, for a few months, and I deleted the account, and I've just been trying to remake it ever since. But yeah, I've been around for a few years, and I've been in the circles. I've been to CPAC. I've been to a lot of events, BlogCon. I'm not unknown. I'm close to unknown, but I'm not unknown.
Do you think this falls into the fact that there really is a echo chamber and groupthink that's out there with conservatives with conservatives and some libertarians on Twitter?
Yes, definitely. Because you see this reaction, this really outrageous, must be a liberal, not even taking in what I'm saying, or if I had valid criticisms. But a huge visceral reactionary response when there are plenty of people on Twitter, other conservatives who I disagreed with, and they disagreed with me on this point and some other points I've been making recently, and we can have these disagreements, and we can have discussions if we want. And it doesn't need to come to lambasting someone simply because they have a different opinion about something that some sort of conservative hero to some has done. And we really shouldn't make our journalists in any degree some sacred cow that must be protected at all costs. They should be able to defend themselves, not with quippy little remarks back, but with an actual conversation.
No, I don't tend to disagree. I tend to agree. How do you avoid that? Because when you've got people who you're a big fan of, like you really like the stuff that they do, I think O'Keefe actually does a pretty decent job.
Oh yeah, let me just say that I did like the Acorn stuff he did. He has a knack for doing something outrageous, but the news story is that the news he's covering ends up being more outrageous than what he's doing, which is what works about it. That's what makes it significant, and that's what was lacking here, honestly.
Yeah, that was. I kind of thought the same thing. So, I mean, this kind of strikes me as the same. Last year, there was a very public fight between John Nolte from Breitbart and Ben Howe regarding the fact that Ben Howe dared to criticize a Tea Party Express for America commercial that was, from what everybody has said, really bad. Right. And the fake movie trailer just didn't work and did nothing to get the message across. Well, Ben Howe went to BuzzFeed and wrote a piece in it. I mean, I don't understand what's wrong with criticizing something if it's not high art. Or not even high art, just not good. Who cares about high art? Just not good.
I remember that particular incident because I remember finding that video and seeing it plastered all over and watching it and being horrified. I saw it on a liberal blogging site and I posted there about how awful it was and how kind of embarrassed I was that this was produced seriously by a conservative organization. And I completely agreed with most of Ben Howe's points. And I'm pretty sure I blogged about it. But yeah, the roasting and that he got from Nolte, as you know, it's put a sour taste in my mouth for Nolte, but should have been something that's encouraged. Just because someone uses a platform you don't like to say something else that you don't like doesn't mean that they aren't making a valid point.
I'm all for more voices. I've been in fights recently with someone who claims that they're an anti-statist, but they are in favor of police militarization. Obviously, we're talking about the entire Ferguson thing.
Right.
And it's kind of like, all right, why argue this? And I don't get an answer. Maybe my questions aren't good enough, but I don't know. I have no problem with arguing with people about stuff if it's on substantive issues.
Mm-hmm. Completely agree.
And how do you think you get back to that? That people can get back to saying, hey, let's have a substantive discussion about something.
Well, I think the first one has to be that individuals on a lower level, like my level, need to probably tone down the quippy, arrogant remarks that we like to make, and I love to make them, and engage in the discussion more and allow for a atmosphere that can really nourish that discussion, which is not always on Twitter.
It is 140 characters.
Right. And the other thing I would say is that people who are a little bit higher up on the food chain, who do have these almost cultish followings where they can do no wrong, should address that fact. And when somebody doesn't like what they do or makes an actual point that this is wrong or this is very badly done for this reason, well, they should, engage and have a discussion about that if they have the time. And rather than just feed them to their followers is, here, offer up this Twitter person on the altar of me because I can't be wrong. And I think when you see liberal journalists going after some of our conservative journalists or pseudo-journalists who have this kind of idea of themselves, this is the first thing they pick up. They say, you don't want to have a discussion. You just want to tweet snarky things. But then we go right back to, say, Joan Walsh or Tor, and we say, you don't want to have a substantial discussion, you just want to say snarky things. And it's more introspection, I think, for everybody. I mean, we all mess up, but we all can do better.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have, the snarky remarks, I think they work sometimes to get a point across.
And Twitter would not be the same without them.
Yes, but I think snark for snark's sake, you turn into Ann Coulter.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And no one really wants that. And
No.
if you do, then there needs to be a reassessment of priorities.
Okay, so I am going to ask this because I know you got to run to the store and I don't want to keep you too late. I am going to ask this though. Definitively, positively, absolutely, you are not a liberal, right?
Well, I did go to art school. So, I'm a trained liberal, but a living conservative.
Okay. Well, see, there we go. Before I let you go, you missed the anime roundtable. I will ask you this: if there is a particular anime that somebody right now should go out and look at, what is it?
Well, this is only for a select niche of people. If you're okay with some gruesome, horrible, violent, but quite touching animes, as Elfen Lied. It's a kind of a rare anime. It's got three discs normally, if you can find it in disc form. But it's absolutely grotesque, but fantastic at the same time.
All right. So there you go. Elfen Lied. Otherwise,
yes.
it looks like Elfen, but it is spelled lied, but it is lead.
Yeah.
So there you go. Catharsis, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
And look forward to having you on the next Anime Roundtable when that happens. Just don't fall asleep.
Well, yeah.
You can't promise that.
Having it at 3 a.m. my time also is a...
All right. Katie, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we will be back right after this. Red Steez joins us. Be sure to stick around for that here on Saturday Night Cigar Lounge, here on Vigilant Liberty Radio.
VLR.
Welcome to the Saturday Night Cigar Lounge on Vigilant Liberty Radio.
Hour number 2 of Saturday Night Cigar Lounge here on Vigilant Liberty Radio. I am your host, Taylor Millard. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you to Felicia Cravens and Catharsis for being on last hour. Even if I threw my next guest off just a little bit, who was trying to figure out, okay, wait, how much of a delay are you actually on? That would be, and I'm going to make sure that I get his introduction correctly, because he told me to. I am to introduce him as Stephen Miller from the Wilderness or whatever. Did I get that right, Stephen? AKA Red Steez.
Yeah, or my Twitter handle, which is @SallyCone. One of the, either or. So, you got to make sure you get my name right. How are we doing tonight? I'm kind of sufficiently on my way to being Lemberged here. I don't think I'm quite at a 239, but I'm trying to get there.
Is that not just a bizarre situation?
I think it's awesome. I think it's one of the funniest things that the actual national DNC has done in a couple of years. I think I haven't stopped laughing about this since I saw the photographs of Large Marge tied down to a torture table. It was just awesome. I'm really? This is the pony you're backing? All right, let's go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, more than just that, it's the sport of Texas politics is what this is. It's just
it looks like bull riding more to me than politics. But I mean, yeah, I'm loving every single second of this. It's so great.
It's just I don't even know what I'm not even a big fan of Rick Perry. I mean, I've said this before. I think he has issues with cronyism and stuff. But this is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous.
It's hilarious. Come on, this is I'm seeing the best come out of pundits and non-pundits on Twitter and on blogs and social media over this. This was just a gift. It really was. It's just everyone's just been hammering at this pun and just keep it up. It's so funny. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of getting on my way to Lemberg. I thought about trying to see what would I have to do to get to a 239. I don't even know if I could get that without drinking Drano.
Ace of Spades actually said what it would take, and I have to find it.
Well, if anyone knows, it's that guy. So.
5 true medical facts about a .238 blood alcohol content.
Oh, this is great. Go.
Fact 1. In medical terminology, the .238 blood alcohol content is between fraternity hazing drunk and drinking to forget it all drunk.
Okay, so she was basically like a date rape mode?
I don't know. Number 4, at .238 blood alcohol contract, you are not charged with driving under the influence. You are charged with sleeping in motion.
Jeez.
If you stacked up all the shot glasses needed to get you to a .238 blood alcohol content, they would reach all the way from the floor to 1 inch above the floor, because they all fell down already because you're effing drunk and really shouldn't be stacking things made of glass.
Or a Texas Democrat.
If you attempt to evade arrest with a .238 blood alcohol content, you succeed for at least 20 minutes. And you succeed for at least 20 minutes. The cops give you a medal right there on the spot. And at .238 blood alcohol content, the human body begins spontaneously generating olives. By the way, this is all being completely misinterpreted. Governor Perry's veto threat was an attempt at an intervention. It was co-sponsored by Dr. Drew Pinsky.
My God.
I love Ace.
He's there's no one else like him. He's a good egg.
I love Ace. He is a good egg. And he did it's funny, he did a panel with John Gabriel, ex-John, at BlogCon last year here in Dallas, and it was discussing storytelling. And he
another expert drinker.
Yeah.
So
Yes. And that was great. The guy is sharp. The guy is really sharp. And knows what he's doing. Which is scary, because I wonder if how much he does it is when he is drinking. Just kidding, Ace. Just kidding, Ace.
No, he's not.
I'm gonna claim that I am. Well, the other thing that I loved about this is David Axelrod tweeted this morning. Unless he was demonstratively trying to scrap the ethics unit for other than a stated reason, the Perry indictment seems pretty sketchy. When David Axelrod says that, David freaking Axelrod.
I mean, David Axelrod probably was blowing a 239 when he tweeted that. Also, to be fair,
he'll delete it tomorrow and say, "Oh, obviously this is a problem."
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, everybody knows what it is, and it's just kind of fun because you get like Mike Zinn and the Castros and the Dreadnought brothers from G.I. Joe tweeting about it. It's like, all right, guys, you have fun tying yourself to this pony. It's like, no problem. I don't know. That's kind of how I look at it. But yeah, I mean, we're going to try and see if we can let's see how Lemberg we can get here tonight.
I will be after the show. I don't drink on air. I'm weird.
You just lost listeners with that, probably.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, folks, I don't drink on air. But that's also because I like really heavy stuff, and I don't want to be sleeping while in motion.
Or dropping olives out of your ass.
Yeah, that too. That too. All right, well, boy, this has just been an insane week. And it started with, obviously, a lot of the stuff that was going on in Ferguson. And there's actually a great, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch has the great picture of the guy throwing the, I guess it's a smoke bomb away, and he's wearing the American flag shirt.
Oh yeah, the new Bansky image at reporters who grew up in Upper West Side are suddenly throwing off like they're revolutionaries. Yep.
It's actually a great picture, but and the reason why I reference it is because, well, you put it in your column entitled, right. And I found it interesting that you titled it "Rough Start: President Romney Parties While Ferguson Burns."
I don't understand why it's interesting. President Romney's on Martha's Vineyard right now, and there's race riots. I don't know. People were kind of shocked about this, and I was kind of like, what's so shocking? We have a president who, in 2012, that we elected. Okay, we took a chance. I mean, we did an incredibly kind of weirdly brave, maybe stupid thing in 2012 is, we limited our first African-American president to one term, which is unthinkable in 2008. I mean, when you think about what the mood was in 2008, you had hope and change, and just, it was crazy. Everyone was just kind of like, this is, hey, we might be on the road here. And then, of course, Obama doesn't live up to his promises. He passes a really unpopular healthcare law that nobody wanted. And ultimately, here we go, 2012. And, Mitt Romney comes into office, and we're all kind of shocked. And, despite the Obama campaign, he's an out of touch rich guy, and he's a 1%er, and he's going to kill your kids. And we all kind of just poo-pooed that off as a country. We said, this is just, and now it turns out, there's some problems. He's 2 years in, and, we have the healthcare law still there. He's breaking his promise, and he's, not putting in the mandate. So he's denying healthcare benefits to a few million people by signing off on waivers and delaying the individual mandate until 2016. And, we have Russia. He said he would take care of Putin, and Putin's, just as, powerful as ever. He's shooting jets out of the sky. And now we have race riots. And it's kind of like, I thought we elected a guy in 2012 who could handle this. This is a guy who came in and who promised people better jobs. And now here we go. We have more police brutality. We have an increasingly police state, just like we had under George W. Bush. So here we go. We have another rich white Republican who just doesn't care about black people, apparently. He's out there militarizing the police force, and now we have a bigger problem, and now we have riots, and he's off on Martha's Vineyard, where all the rich white people go. That's where, I don't know, think of any rich white Republican you can, and they're on Martha's Vineyard. And any Massachusetts guy is up there. And even some John Kerry goes up there sometimes, who, is basically Mitt Romney anyway. And he's out there partying, and that, you have these incredible images coming out of Ferguson that just look like they're right out of the 60s. And, we kicked a guy out of office who had experience as a community organizer, who is an expert. I mean, he spent his whole life dealing with communities and helping organize people and calming things. And we kicked him out of office for what now we have is a guy who is coming off like the Bain Wall Street executive that we all were told he was. So that's just kind of, that's kind of my opinion about it. He needs to get his act together.
I hate to break this to you. I hate to break this to you, Stephen. Mitt Romney lost in 2012.
Well, I mean, I know that you all think that like he lost by winning, but he got into the office and he's let a lot of us down. Is kind of my point. And I wish, I think there's a lot of people second guessing their votes from 2012 when we had an expert community organizer who, with Trayvon Martin was able to calm the country just before the 2012 election, and he was able to go out and calm the country with Trayvon Martin. And instead we took in a guy who I feel the same way you do, Taylor. I feel like we've lost as well. I feel like, so I don't know. That was just kind of, I'm just calling it like I see it.
Okay. Except for you're getting the names wrong, though. Barack Obama is the one who's been doing all this, going to Martha's Vineyard, and
Well, of course, Barack Obama is going to Martha's Vineyard. He has plenty of time on his hands now that he's not president. So I would too. Of course he is. Barack Obama's free to go do whatever he wants. And in fact, you know what? I'm even disappointed in him as well over what's happening in Ferguson, because for a guy who was, a one-term president, but was very, it's going to be a historical one-term. He could, be spending some of this time in Ferguson. He's not president anymore. So he could actually be on the ground in St. Louis talking with, the police and talking with community leaders. And he could be there marching with other civil rights icons like Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson, people who are just known for their healing. And, Barack Obama could be there too. Instead, Barack Obama is in Hollywood hanging out on movie sets with his daughter. So, some things never change. But, Barack Obama could do a lot with his legacy to, help repair this. And he could also do a big "see, I told you so." You have Romney out on Martha's Vineyard, and he could be doing a big "see, I told you so." And he could be in Missouri, and who knows? Obama could run again in 2016. This could go a lot further than I think he even realizes. But I think I'm looking at it as we have two guys that are turning out not to be who they said they were in 2012.
You know that obviously what we're talking about here is the fact that Barack Obama won the election, and he's the one who's been doing this, not Mitt Romney.
Well, we can agree to disagree. I feel I'm as frustrated over the situation in Ferguson as you are, having voted for Mr. Romney. But I think the country is looking at it as perhaps we made a mistake. We had a racial healing on our hands. We had the oceans receding, and we screwed it up. So again, we can agree to disagree.
Okay. For those who are wondering what's going on in Ferguson right now, according to Antonio French, the alderman, there are people still marching. Some of them they've now gotten signs which say "Justice for Mike Brown," "Stop racist police terror in the U.S.," "Don't shoot, hands up, rest in peace, Mike B."
Bring back our girls.
Bring back our girls. And the rain actually helped keep people away from a lot of stuff going on. There is actually a great photo out there of people standing in front of a boarded up restaurant which says "We are open," and it looks like they're guarding the door.
Oh, great. The cops are guarding the door, or
civilians?
Oh, great. Yeah. This was who was it last night? One of the two heroic, harrowing journalists who risked life and limb being arrested at McDonald's. This was great. At like 1:50 a.m. they were guarding the door, and then 10 minutes later, somebody I think from New York Daily News or one of the papers here in New York was, it's looted. It's just like, great job, guys. Here's the thing. What's being looted right now and what's being torched to the ground, besides businesses, is the media's entire narrative over what's happening in Ferguson. These people don't even know. I mean, I'm fully willing to be at the point where they're just probably standing around like the Monopoly guy with their hands out, like, we don't know. We're done. And it's incredible. It's incredible to watch. And it was late last night. I was half asleep in bed, and I was kind of just scrolling through tweets, and I was like, oh God, there's more riots. And they're desperately trying to hold on to this narrative that they solved this. Their arrests, they were, it was the equivalent of Mandela getting thrown in a cell, and it all came crashing down last night. I just think we should put reporters in charge of everything. Just put them in charge of everything. Let's see how well it goes.
I know some reporters. I'm not sure they're really good to be in charge of anything. I'm just saying. I know some reporters. And
it seemed like they had this thing all fixed 2 days ago. We got the cops to throw away their gear, and you know what? I'm by no means defending the presence that was out there, but the cops were out there in full force for a reason. Okay, this wasn't just a black kid was shot, and all of a sudden the next day there's an army marching through Ferguson. Okay, there were 3 nights of riots and looting, and I think there's a pretty well-informed consensus that what we saw on the streets with sniper rifles and heavy-handed tactics and stuff like that, I think we can all go, okay. I don't think that was so much a wake-up to what happened with Mike Brown as much as it was wait a second, why is Homeland Security asking for thousands and thousands of rounds of ammo? And all of a sudden, people are like, oh, there's this heavy-handed military presence in the United States. Yeah, no shit. There's Americans who are getting audited by the IRS. Okay, yeah. And you have Homeland Security, and I'm not going to touch the Bundy Ranch. Other people can go near that. I'm not. I don't know. I don't know enough about it to really have an informed opinion. Thank God. And but you look at it and you go, nobody's really concerned about the actual situation in Ferguson. And I think I had this. I was viewing some things earlier tonight with Vines and tweets, and I'm like, what are these people protesting? And anyone who's listening, either in chat room or Twitter, answer this. Help me answer this. What are they protesting now? Are they protesting Mike Brown's death? Well, the Department of Justice is investigating his death. Okay, so are you now protesting the investigation? Okay, because odds are this cop is probably going to be charged. So this is the whole point. We have a process in this country, and the process needs to be allowed to work. And the second you acquiesce to a mob, they're not going to go away. They're going to get bigger, and it's going to get worse. And what's happened in the last 2 to 3 days is nothing but an acquiesce to a mob. And they're shocked. The media is shocked that all of a sudden cops were staying in their vans last night. It was like the most revealing thing about the whole night was they're staying in vans, not doing anything. Yeah, you pricks were the ones demonizing them and putting their lives in danger now for 3 days. Of course they're not going to do anything. So
one of the things that Fishy pointed out last hour, because she was up paying attention to this, was that the reason why the cops stayed in was that it could have ended up being a worse situation, and some worse stuff could have happened. It could have ended up being more than just looting. People could have ended up getting killed or seriously injured. And, look, this is the way I kind of look at it. Police can only do so much. And at some point, you got to be able to defend your own property. And you got to be able to stop people from trying to do stuff. And that's the way I kind of look at it.
I look at it and I say the second cops try to get into a popularity contest, they've already lost the fight. Because cops are never going to win a popularity contest. That's not why we have police. Police aren't here to sign autographs, and I understand that the more they're ingrained in a community, and I think that has a lot to do with the meltdown that we're seeing, is you have a police force, a heavy-handed police force in a community where the people who live there don't see them as representative of them, okay? And there's a million reasons why we could probably go into that. And you know what? Former President Barack Obama would probably have a better idea on those things, but I don't. But I look at it and I say, I live in New York City. And so when I get off on a subway at Union Square or Grand Central Station, and you walk through, there's officers holding, machine guns. I'm not a to the T gun expert here, folks. So don't throw your shit at me. But they're in heavy armor and they're sitting there and guarding, and 99.9% of the population walks by them like they don't care, because people have places to be. So I look at it and say, I think the disconnect in Ferguson. We all have our own version of events in our head of what happened and then the video's released and everyone's like, well, maybe it did this, and that's great, but it ultimately doesn't matter. We have a legal process, and the cops the state sheriff's department or whoever has now overtaken this investigation, and they have Eric Holder's Justice Department basically taking the side of the people who are looting and protesting. That's what's going on here, but that's who Eric Holder is. So you have a police department who's now just afraid to do anything. They're like, we're not going to do anything. And in the process now you have innocent business owners who are just losing their life, like their whole means. So it's kind of like, we're just going to make sure now nobody has jobs. Nobody has any chance. And it's a mess. And like I said, you have the cops getting into popularity contests, and the second that happens, they're going to lose, because cops, they're not popular with anybody. Nobody that I've seen in my life ever is really favorable of police, except maybe, Asian tourists in New York City and Times Square posing with the cops and New York City. That's maybe the only time I've seen like really popular cops.
I love cops. I mean, one of the things that I've said, and I said this earlier this week, I've said it before here on the show, is that I wanted to be a police officer. I was in the process of getting accepted into the Arlington, Texas Police Department before I ended up getting my current job. And, you know, I love cops. I have a problem, though, with them showing up in full force like they did on Wednesday.
Right.
And that's my issue. I don't mind that the SWAT team was nearby, but my issue was how the response was done. And here's what I kind of think about this. Is when you have a situation where you have people who are already angry and they're mad and they're looking to lash out, and they see someone basically in all camo with weapons, with helmets on, standing there like they're waiting for a fight. It's almost like it's unintentional instigating.
Right. No, but I think that the majority of the people that are paying attention to this agree with that sentiment. I don't think that there's a large contingent of people on any ideology, whether it's left, well, they're crazy anyway, but moderate to conservative to people who, I think a lot of people are going around going, holy crap, like what are you guys doing? Like you said, camouflage. And interestingly, that's like one of the things that stuck out to me. Like, what the fuck do you guys need camouflage for? Like, this isn't, you're not in Beirut here. It's like, where are you going to be hiding in the grass from guys in white t-shirts? Like, what is going on with this? And like I said, but I think that you're hitting to the point. And the point is like, it's not even so much the specific situation. It is like, this kind of woke people up to, wait a second. What if Ferguson, Missouri, just kind of like this suburb of St. Louis that's just kind of in the middle of the country, if they have this kind of gear, what does my police department have?
Yeah, well, and I know what I mean. The Dallas, the Dallas County Sheriff's Office has an anti-mine vehicle. A vehicle that can stop mines.
I think that's like it's old military gear. It's like, we got to do something with it, because we spent it and now we have to do something with it. And you have the appropriations committees going, we'll take it, give it to us. And it's just kind of like, it's just, yeah, I think it woke. And the thing about it is, the second they arrested the HuffPo guy and the Washington Post guy, that was it. Like, this story it's going to catch fire, and that's where it just gets out of hand. But to me, it's like, okay, guys, you just made the story about you, so now you're the story. And what happened last night was they didn't want to be the story anymore. It's like, oh, there's people looting. We better go off and we better find people who are protecting stores and stuff, which was great. I mean, I don't think anybody was sitting there going, well, they shouldn't be doing that. I think what somebody in my position at 2:30 in the morning was like, well, guys, why are there people guarding the store? You were sending us pictures of, dancing unicorns and Smurfs yesterday. Like, everything was kumbaya. What is happening? And the thing is they ignore that. They completely ignore, they go from A to B, then they ignore C, D, and then they jump to M. And that's not what their job is. And I can go into a rant about media narratives and, until I'm fully Lemberged here, But that's the whole where somebody like me, I jump in and I just go, wait a second, guys, this isn't what you were pushing. So instead of reporting facts on the ground, reporting that, yes, there are both black and men rioting, and yes, maybe Mike Brown was actually shoplifting, and that doesn't mean he's deserves to be shot, but you're skipping every single thing that happens in between these events. And now because that, Riley and Laurie decided to make themselves a story, yes, we're going to scrutinize you, because you decided this was about you. This isn't about Mike Brown or his family or the victim. and what the actual facts of trying to figure out what the hell happened. Okay, this is now about a reporter getting arrested and a larger case of the First Amendment, and that's kind of why I asked, do these people even know what they're protesting anymore? Do they even know? I mean, and no one's going to ask them that. So it's a fluid, fun, spontaneous situation. But the point is, the media have made themselves the story. So you're going to be the story now. And when you decide that you're not going to, who was it? Byron Tal Politico tweeted late last night. He goes, "I'm standing in a convenience store that looks like it was half looted, but it's okay otherwise. And it was trashed." Like, he posted a photograph and it's completely freaking trashed. And he's literally sitting there going, this isn't so bad. And, I'm like, this building's fine. There's just oh shit, I'm on fire. Like, it's just like these guys. And obviously, like I said, I could go off for hours like this. But that's, I think, what the issue was with what happened last night. No one is cheering on these businesses going up in flames. These are people's livelihoods. This is all these guys have. And it's like, hey, let's just make sure nobody has a job in Ferguson. Sure, why not? And they were so the people today, because their whole narrative just went up in flames last night. They're so hell-bent on now they have to fix it. It's like, instead of just reporting what's happening, because they took a point of view and their point of view didn't turn out to be what's actually the facts on the ground. Now they have to fix their point of view. And so they look credible. So now they have to say that this happened instead of what really happened. That to me is just, it's such the tragic farce of all of this. It's comedic in a way. You just have to laugh at it and get completely Lemberged off your ass, or you'll go insane.
Well, with that, we need to take a break. And we'll be right back after this. This is Saturday Night Cigar Lounge on Vigilant Liberty Radio. I'm Taylor Millard. He is Stephen Miller, a.k.a. Red Steez. You should give him a follow on Twitter. We'll be back right after this.
This is the Pint-Sized Pundit, and I am here to tell you that anything Taylor says on Saturday Night Cigar Lounge is his opinion and his opinion only. He does not speak for his employer, his employer's employer, or anyone else. He especially doesn't speak for Liz unless she says so.
A progressive woman once told me that if she was my wife, she'd poison my coffee. I told her if I was her husband, I'd drink it. This is Alan Bordius, host of Their Finest Hour, Monday nights here on Vigilant Liberty Radio.
Mr. President, members of Congress, you've been making a lot of noise about taking our guns away. But you might want to review history. 1835, Gonzales, Texas Territory. The authorities wanted to confiscate the big gun that protected that colony. You know what the people said? Come and take it. Because they were willing to fight for their freedom and their guns. So are we.
Come and take it if you want it. Come and take it if you think you can. Come and take it, but I warn you, you'll have to pry it from my cold dead hands. We want the freedom that God gave us, so you best not cross that line. If you want this gun, you gotta come through us and take it.
One shot at a time. Just like Gonzales, we're keeping our guns.
This is Ed Morrissey of HotAir.com, and you're listening to Vigilant Liberty Radio.
You're listening to Saturday Night Cigar Lounge with Taylor, right here on Vigilant Liberty Radio.
Back here on Saturday Night Cigar Lounge, here on Vigilant Liberty Radio, a little demon hunter, and thank you Dustin Hoyt from America Our Way for recording that liner. Be sure to catch him on Thursday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central, here on Vigilant Liberty Radio. He's got a really good show. He's got a really good show that y'all should be listening to. Before that, in the Ed Morrissey liner, we had some Amon Amarth, which is Viking metal, one of my favorite music to listen to, even though I'm sure it drives the boss lady Liz Harrison just a little nuts to have to listen to that.
Fine with it now.
Okay. And I always get worried when she calls in, but...
Oh, this is actually a sound test.
It's a sound test?
Yeah. You heard the vehicle in the background there. I am actually remote.
You're in Ferguson, aren't you?
No, I'm not. No, this will become a running joke. I am in my outdoor office, otherwise known as my front porch, because I'm one of these wonderful people like Tom O'Halloran that can, actually move all of the electronic stuff outdoors.
Must be nice.
Yes.
Must be nice. Everybody in the chat room, by the way, is saying hi, Liz.
Oh, okay. I do need to go and open up the chat. That would be nice.
Yes. So you were just sitting around listening to Red Steez and I discussing, and decided to get involved?
No, actually, I seriously wanted to go and check the whole option of, switching out the Yeti to the other computer and putting it somewhere other than my desk and see if it worked. So, yeah, this is quite literally... I mean, that's not to pick on either one of you. Of course, I was riveted to the conversation. It was just, two birds with one stone kind of thing.
Did I just hear Kill Whitey in the background? Was that a firecracker or a gunshot?
No, the only thing you're going to hear here is we have the King of the Nimrods, and he will come out at all hours of the night. I've heard him as late as 2 o'clock in the morning, and he'll ride his skateboard down my street.
No, Stephen, I think you're right. I think Liz did go to Ferguson.
Oh, good God.
She was away for a while today. She said
she
had to do something. She said she had to do something with her mother, but I'm not 100% sure. I think you're right. I think she went to Ferguson.
Oh, good God! I would not do that.
Don't get arrested, Liz.
I did the G20. I am not ever
free beauty products.
I don't need hair extensions. Thank you. Oh, the wind's kicking up.
That's the tear gas.
No, that's the wind. We have storms rolling in. Fun.
Mm-hmm.
But now we've determined that I can actually move my office around, which is a good thing.
So basically, how many times now are we going to run into, I don't know, situations involving you being outside and me being inside?
I don't know. Not very often. This is going to be for, because I haven't been able to successfully install the broadcast software on this computer. And bluntly, I'm afraid to. Because I maxed out the memory and I don't think it could handle it. But you never know.
Okay.
I'm just having another Lemberg over here. I think I'm at about a 231. And I can't see straight, but we'll see. I'll let you know if I get there, if I'm still awake.
Okay, so you're not quite at the you're not walking while you're not talking while awake, huh?
No, I'm not quite at just nuke Iraq point of the discussion, but I'm probably give me about another 10 minutes if we have that, and I'm going to be quite sufficiently Lemberg to that point. Yes. Nuke Iraq.
I guess it's a good thing that I haven't, hit the cosmos until just now.
Yes.
Yes. And to be fair, they're the skinny girl ones, which means they're really watered down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, they are, seriously. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the skinny girl line, but basically it boils down to you're paying a premium price for more water. And artificial, or no, I don't think they're artificial flavors. I think they bother to get natural flavors, but yeah.
It's really getting to the point with the way that everybody's sound quality sound, it's getting to the point where I feel like I just need to go ahead and either start drinking while everybody's on air, which I'm not sure I'm going to do that, or I'm going to start, I'm going to save up for a new microphone.
Ooh. Yeah, don't get too worried about that because there's a very distinct possibility that the Yeti will be replaced. So
does that mean that you're going to send it to me?
There's a possibility.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Gifts!
Yeah. And ones that actually function. That's a good thing.
Oh!
Socialism.
Come on!
I know, I'm not picking on you. I am picking on somebody else, but yeah.
Okay.
Running joke, we had a friend that would consistently give us things, and they were, not functioning. Not really worth it. Yeah.
But, when I sit here and I look at what's going on, what's going on here, and really everything that the response that's been, and despite what Red Steez has said, President Obama's, because he is still president, he was elected. I know he keeps saying not, but he was elected. In his discussion of, what went on in Ferguson, his comments on, I guess it was Thursday or Friday, were kind of boring. And he certainly didn't come off like the great healer that I think a lot of people wanted him to be.
He's checked out, dude. It's really that simple. I mean, to anybody listening or anybody tweeting, you have to get this through. Is he is checked out? He sees an electoral red wedding coming in November. It's unavoidable. Is the closer it gets, the more likely it's going to happen. You have to understand he's checked out, and so this idea that he's bored or he's just not going to be able to do things his way is all it is, and it doesn't matter what happens to the world or the country. He's done in 2 years. He is done, and that's honestly how he looks at it. He is out of that office in 2 years. Whatever happens to the world or the country beyond that, it doesn't affect him, and that's all it is. You can't say that we have a megalomaniac narcissist on our hands and then complain like he just doesn't look like he just doesn't care. Well, of course he doesn't care. He's a megalomaniac narcissist who only cares about himself.
Yeah.
So I think that, as much as I see people's comments and things like that where he is checked out. He has 1 foot in retirement. And he's going to executive order his way from now to the end of his term, which should make tomorrow interesting, whatever he's doing back in Washington. I think this has a lot to do with the Iraq policy. I think this has a lot to do with all foreign policy of his. He's not going to get involved in Iraq because of how much time he has left. If ISIS was developed in 2003, 2013, it'd be a different issue. If it was 2011 even, it'd be a different issue. I think you'd see a more forceful response to ISIS. Mm-hmm. He is out of office in 2 years. He's not going. His attitude is I don't want to be left with the mess, quote, mess, that I was left with from George W. Bush to whoever his predecessor is going to be. That's my take on it. I have some more kind of kooky blogger far out there theories with Iraq. But that's ultimately what this is about. He's going to do the most minimal thing possible to avoid looking bad, which is airstrikes, humanitarian drops. Who knows? If he really truly cared in the sense of if he really wanted to go full Obama, he would just fly he'd fly the refugees here to New York City and give them all citizenship. But he's not going to do that. So
I have to admit, though, look, we're back at war in Iraq. I don't care what he says. We are back at war in Iraq.
My favorite thing was Oliver Willis saying, he tweeted at someone, if you guys think that airstrikes are war, then there's just no reasoning with you, and he did it in his own special comic book way. And then I dug up something of his from, it was with Bush. It was airstrikes in Iran, and he basically said, if Bush strikes airstrikes in Iran, that's an act of war from 2007. So I love going after that fat clown. I'm sorry, the guy's such a fat dancer.
And Oliver was. I remember he made a comment to me about, I got along with conservatives before they went insane. It's like, okay.
Just tell them the Redskins' name is racist and move on.
Now, wait a minute. Maybe he was referring to me there. Because he used to talk to me many, many eons ago, and somewhere along the way, he decided it wasn't a good idea. I guess it was somewhere along the way when that goofy black cat Shock decided that I was evil.
He was such a reasonable guy until they got unionized.
Yeah, something like that. It's insane. They're all insane, but that's neither here nor there. But I just enjoy picking on them.
Yeah, I had to interrupt Taylor for an Oliver Willis joke. We couldn't help you. Go ahead.
But you look at all right, so the United States on Saturday, talking about Iraq, launched several more airstrikes at the Islamist State, including ones targeting members of the militant group who are positioned around the country's largest dam. The Mosul Dam was captured last month, and its entirely swift and deadly run across North Iraq in recent months. Well, I'll tell you one reason why I think it was so quick is that people are like, let's see, they're either going to behead us or we can join them.
Right. Well, but that's who we're up against, and we don't have leadership who views it that way. You had Elizabeth Warren saying we need to negotiate and talk with them. I'm paraphrasing, but I also don't speak Cherokee, so that's the best that I could come up with of what she said, was that we need to negotiate. Okay, how do we negotiate with people who wants to cut your head off? Let's find out. This goes back to how, to me, and this kind of goes into my kooky blogger theory, which, shameless plug, I'm going to try to get out this week for my next blog update, is about Iraq.
At the Wilderness.
Yeah, at the Wilderness. Yay. Is if you look at how Obama's dealt with Afghanistan and how he's dealt with other countries in the Middle East, I just don't even think he recognizes Maliki's power. I think he looks at Maliki as a guy who was Bush's. That was Bush's guy. This is the guy who Bush installed, and you're talking about a president we have now who doesn't even recognize the House of Representatives because the opposing party controls it. He doesn't even recognize their legislative authority, and he's pretty much has said as much. So if you look at how he views political opposition, he, to me, looks at Maliki as just, that's Bush's guy. I want him gone. Well, mission accomplished. Maliki's now going to leave. Which, it's the irony behind what was it with Bush when Bush called axis of evil. At his State of the Union, he called the Iran, Iraq, North Korea the axis of evil, and the mainstream network media collectively lost their shit when he said this because he's actually naming bad guys. Oh, this is bad. You're going out there and you're naming countries who haven't done anything to us, and they literally went out and had a hissy fit and were just wailing in the streets. Well, here's a quick list. So now we have Maliki in Iraq is gone. That's one regime change. We have Gaddafi in Libya is gone. That's two regime changes. We have Mubarak in Egypt is gone. That's three regime changes. We had the Obama administration backing the opposition candidate in Tunisia, I believe. Someone can maybe correct me on this. And also he had John Kerry backing the opposition in Turkey. So that's three regimes called for to step down, and that's 3 more, including Assad in Syria, who needed to go. So that's the healer of the world asking 7 regimes of the Middle East to step down. Well, where was the outrage there? Where was this? It's none of our business. It was completely non-existent. Another big clue as to where Obama's mind frame is on this is he negotiated with the Taliban to release Bo Bergdahl. He didn't negotiate with the Karzai government. He views, and then they called the Taliban the enemy combatants, not the terrorist group. So to me, they view the Taliban as the actual rightful governing authority of Afghanistan. And again, I'm just a kooky blogger, so I can say these things without having a national media go, wow, that guy's just crazy. I'm just going off of what I see, okay? And I'm going off of what the words the administration is saying. So you have them releasing 5 Taliban for 1 Bo Bergdahl, and you have them negotiating with the Taliban, who is not the governing authority in Afghanistan. That's debatable. People are going to say, of course they are, but you still have the Karzai government.
Yeah.
He doesn't negotiate with the Karzai government because that's Bush's guy. And now you have Maliki gone, and who knows what's going to happen in Iraq there. So I look at it as Obama doesn't even recognize the governing authority of Maliki in Iraq. And if you notice, like, they basically said, we're not going to step in this until Baghdad falls. That was the craziest thing. Is like, well, so wait a second. ISIS is cutting off thousands of heads across all of Iraq, but if you're in the city limits of Baghdad, your head is safe. It's like, well, yeah, just come on in and you can keep your head. And it's like literally the only city on the map Joe Biden can find, and that's who's in charge right now. So I look at it and I say, the most minimal is going to happen with Iraq, and you're absolutely right. We're at war with Iraq, and Jim Garrity's been doing this incredibly for like the last week, where he goes day 7, war with Iraq, and there's Obama on the golf course, and day 6, war with Iraq, and there's Obama dancing at his party. I'm sorry, Romney. I'm sorry, Obama. And there you go, and that's where I'm just like, he looks at it as his promise was to end the war in Iraq. And one of the points I love to hammer home is the last Oval Office address this president gave was in 2010, August, removing troops from Iraq. He has not given an Oval Office address since then. Think about that. That's 4 years. Think about all the Oval Office addresses you can throughout, anybody's memory. The first one that comes into my mind is Reagan with the Challenger. Because I think that's the first one I really remember seeing. For those of you that now would like to try and guess my age, you had Bush with 9/11. You had Bush 1 with going into Iraq, and so you think about all these historic Oval Office addresses. Obama doesn't do those. He used the Oval Office to say, "I'm ending Bush's war. I'm using this office to right the wrongs that Bush did." So, and that's just, again, I have no foreign policy degree. I didn't go to Oxford. I didn't do these things. All I have is what I see and the actions that have led up to it. And I think this was all about getting Maliki gone. I think this was letting ISIS metastasize until Maliki could be replaced with whoever. It doesn't matter who. And this is going back to ISIS. They didn't matter 7 months ago. 7 months ago, these guys were the JV team. They were only cutting off junior varsity heads, apparently. They hadn't gone pro yet. Yeah. So all of a sudden, we have Chuck Hagel last week saying, this is a threat unlike anything we've ever seen. Well, how in 7 months did they go from being the JV squad, cutting off junior varsity heads, to all of a sudden a threat like we've never seen, cutting off heads of people that actually matter in just 7 months? And it's, to me, I see a policy in place where you rule from ignore, instigate a crisis, ignore. Now we have a crisis. Now we have to do something about it. And if you rule from that point of view, it becomes easier to get the things you want done. This isn't anything that's I'm not going Matrix on anybody here. This is something that a lot of people look at and they say, what's happening in Iraq is no different than what's happening on our southern border. You instigate something and then you ignore it until it gets to the breaking point to where you have to do something to fix it. So I haven't seen a lot of that comparison, so I assume I'm probably the only kooky, crazy blogger out there with that. But I'll let you I'll let you explore that theory and throw in your thoughts.
My only issue with the al-Maliki theory, or the al-Maliki theory, is the fact that Maliki had already been criticized about how he refused to share power. And was basically sitting there going, all right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to crack down on the Sunnis because they cracked down on us.
Right.
And that's the only issue that I have.
I think you have to look at it from the standpoint that progressives look at it, which is it's not our business what Maliki does in Iraq. Remember? This is not our business. It's not our business to go in it and say to other nations, this is how you're supposed to do things, because that's what George Bush did. And he removed Saddam Hussein, who was a sovereign leader of a great country. And you have to look at it in the sense of like you have to make them live to their own standards, which is, you're right. I'm not sitting here defending Maliki. I'm not saying that this is a guy who should be in power. I'm saying that this is the guy who was in power. And so you have a guy who was Bush's guy, and that's Bush's puppet, and you're absolutely right. I mean, whether Maliki should have been removed I'm not even addressing that. What I'm addressing is the fact that he was removed. Mm-hmm. And this was an administration who said, we don't do that. We don't do regime change. And you have 7 regime changes under them in 5 years.
Yeah. And he is the 5th U.S. president in a row to get involved in Iraq in one way, shape, or form or another. And again, this is the libertarian in me. This is the libertarian that sits here and, would rather see free trade get done and free markets be done than military, intervention unless it's absolutely necessary.
Well, that's the great thing about terrorists. They don't care about anybody else's schedule or needs.
Yeah. But what was the Obama quote? We need to stop doing nation building. We need to do some nation building at home.
Right, which is going well in Ferguson. Which is going great in Ferguson.
Right out of the Socialist Handbook or the Nazi Handbook.
There is a shit ton of nation building happening in Ferguson, Missouri, right now.
But
thanks, President Romney.
And yes, I did use the N-word, and everybody wants to know why the Nazi word came out. You need to read 3 New Deals by Wolfgang Schivelbusch. It is an excellent book which looks at, believe it or not, the comparisons between Stalin Russia, Hitler Germany, and FDR America. It's very important to read. It's a great book.
You just went after FDR. You lost me. Good night. Kidding. No, but I look at it. I mean, that's my crazy theory. And like I said, I have more about this in my blog coming out where I can actually link to things. This is about ignoring a crisis until you get your way on it. And I don't know what Obama's way is. This is where my knowledge on this subject stops. And again, people are free to speculate away. I think this was about ignoring ISIS, especially when you have the Pentagon and you have the DOD coming out and saying, we knew about this threat. We knew what was happening. We saw this happen in northern Iraq. And it's just kind of like Obama just is out there not even talking about it. I think his philosophy is to, I think Obama's philosophy, using a sporting analogy, which I go into a little bit more in my piece coming out, is I go into like he's president ESPN. Everything he does is about sports as far as analogies. And his attitude with dealing with terrorists is it's the same as, a drunken idiot running on a baseball field, which is if you don't show them on TV, well, they'll stop seeking attention and they'll stop doing it. And that's his theory of terrorism. If you downplay it and you ignore it and you call it workplace violence or, just it didn't happen in the first place, Boston Marathon, then it'll go away. If you stop giving them attention, well, no, jackass, that's not what happens with terrorists. They up their attacks to make sure you do get attention. That's how history's proven this, whether it's 9/11 or Munich, okay? And the analogy, one of the things that I find striking that not enough people, I think, pick up on, Obama never says he won the war in Iraq. Not once.
He said he ended it.
He says he ended it. He never says he won it.
Well, we never go to war. I mean, these days we don't go to war to win. We haven't gone to win a war since World War II.
I think Gulf. Well, you could argue Bush 1 should have taken Saddam out, but then we would have just been right where we are, and you'd have President Al Gore doing his thing. Again, that's debatable history, which is just not really interesting debate to me.
Yeah.
But I look at it and I say, you have a president who says he ended the war. Well, it's because ending is forfeiting. It's not winning the game. And again, this is a sports analogy. A coach who ends a game just forfeits. He just takes his team and leaves.
Yeah.
And you ultimately end up losing that game. And the only person in a forfeit that benefits is the coach, because the coach doesn't have that on his record. The coach can say, I didn't lose. That's a forfeit.
Yeah.
I didn't lose that game. We left. That's my point. Is he looks at Iraq as just George Bush's mess. Obama to me thinks that Iraq is going to be pinned on George W. Bush for the next 50 years, and what's happening now, it's not going to be. Like, what's happening now in Iraq is ultimately going to get pinned probably on him, especially if we get attacked again or if there are attempts to attack us again.
Yeah, believe it or not, we have a caller. Believe it or not, I'm a little worried about this. Actually, not really. Prairie Dog, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. You were complaining that you wish there was more time. So hang on 1 second, because I am going to say this. We're going to take a very, very brief to hit the top of the hour, and then we'll be right back. So don't go anywhere, Larry. Don't go anywhere, Stephen. Liz, if you're still paying attention, don't go anywhere.
I'm being paid by the minute, so I'm good.
This is Saturday Night Cigar Lounge. We will be right back here on Vigilant Liberty Radio.
VLR.
Welcome to the Saturday Night Cigar Lounge on Vigilant Liberty Radio.
I'll be right back.
Hour number 3 here on Saturday Night Cigar Lounge here on Vigilant Liberty Radio. I'm your host, Taylor Millard. Stephen Miller, otherwise known as Red Steez, is here. Liz Harrison, if she's not corralling kids, she is...
I am here.
All right. And Larry Hedman, who, otherwise known as Prairie Dog, who just said that he would be right back, is here too, even though he said he would be right back. And Larry was the caller who I wanted to get to. So let's do this. Let's kind of reset just a second. And by the way, before I forget, congratulations, Sith Khan in the chat room, for guessing the song title. Yes, it is "See You Later, Space Cowboy" by Yoko Kanno and the Seatbelts. Sith Khan, congratulations, you win a VLR no prize.
Oh my! Does
That's
this
some
mean
of
I
that
have to start
Japanese
looking
jazz
for
that I
prizes?
like, which drives Liz insane.
No. See, this is really bad. No, just because I wouldn't put it on my regular playlist does not mean it would drive me insane. It would drive me insane if somebody put it on my regular playlist.
Okay.
Right. I can listen to almost anything, here and there.
Here and there?
Yeah.
All right. So basically this is what's been going on. The last hour we've been discussing not only Ferguson a little bit, we've also been discussing what's been going on with the Iraq war. And because look, let's be honest.
What war? We're not at war. We don't do war anymore. Iraq war is not happening.
Okay, the Iraq conflict.
Police action. Wasn't that the convenient excuse? Yes.
I thought they usually called them operations.
Operations. There you go. Did they forget to put the batteries in and make everything go buzz?
Yeah, I guess.
Oh.
I guess. Larry, you actually called in at the end of the last hour. You said you wanted to make a couple of comments. What's going on?
Well, it's all about the money. The reason Maliki wouldn't leave is that he hadn't extorted enough out of Iraq. And I'm guessing that that's probably it.
Okay.
Is that they needed 6 months to a year to see how much American money they could extort out of the system before they gave up. I'll bet if you look into it, those guys that were in top positions in his government pocketed millions of American dollars, I'll bet.
Oh, no doubt. Yes, it is about the money. And that's what the whole, next 2 years will be about, because fundraising and golf are important. Well, that's very important.
Other point. What is Obama raising funds for? He's out fundraising all the time, but nobody ever says where these funds are going.
They're going to the Democratic National Committee and to various PACs that have to do with, Democrats staying in office. But more importantly, he's probably doing the same thing that Rick Santorum did many years ago. And that is, he's probably somewhere along the way either gotten himself a wink and a nod deal with one of these PACs or more than one of these PACs, so that when he leaves office, he'll still be living off of the money from the taxpayers, but it won't be the tax money anymore. It will be the money that, they donated to, these fundraisers that he keeps on doing.
Right. I think he answered. He has an answer. I'm sorry. What? Who called in? I'm sorry. What was your name?
This is Larry, otherwise known as P-Dog from
P-Dog
from Free Radical Network.
Oh, nice to meet you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What I was going to say was, there's an interesting fight that's going to happen that nobody's talking about yet. That which kind of leads into why is he fundraising? Who's he fundraising for? And then Liz said DNC and PACs. Well, one of the interesting things that is going to be coming around the next couple of years is Obama's donor list with OFA and the DNC. And it's going to be an amazingly just hilarious fight because Obama owns his own donor list with OFA. The DNC does not have his donor lists. And there's kind of the rumors, and you'll see stories about this floating out there with Obama's basically going to extort the hell out of the DNC for the OFA donor lists. The Obama for America, which is now Organizing for Action donor lists for either Hillary or whoever is going to be running in 2016, Tatanka.
Don't hold your breath on that one. Seriously.
No, I'm not.
No, I mean on the money actually going to the 2016 campaign.
Oh no, it will. It will, but it's just a question of how much it's going to cost the DNC to get that donor money, and that's what Larry was saying, and that's what you were saying was about living off of that money. Obama's not going anywhere post-presidency. I think people need to get this. I think people need to understand this for everyone who's like, God, I can't wait till he's gone. And he's just like, he's not going anywhere. He's not even going to be 60 years old when he leaves office. He's going to be around for a very long time. And that's what OFA is about. OFA is making sure OFA is about making sure he stays around. Okay. And whoever we have, it could be a President Paul, a President Clinton, a President Rubio, a President Ryan, a President Biden. It could be any of those. What you're going to see is you're going to have pretend, for instance, that what happened in Ferguson right now. Taylor, pick somebody. Pick someone that's going to run in 2016. Anybody, go.
Rick Perry.
Rick Perry. Pretend we have a President Rick Perry in 2016, and what you're seeing in Ferguson is happening. What you're going to see is the media is going to be saying whatever they're going to be saying about President, and the next thing they're going to do is they're going to turn a camera on Barack Obama and go, what do you have to say? Because that's who he is. That's what this is all about. So Obama's going to make sure that, one, he doesn't go anywhere because he's financially set, and he's going to give speeches now for the next 30 years. It's going to be unfucking bearable. You have to be prepared for it. I think he wants to beat Bill Clinton. That's these people hate each other, and this is what the whole idea behind the donor lists and the fundraising has. Is he's not raising money obviously for OFA, but you're right, he's raising money for DNC, he's raising money for PACs. But there's going to be such a hilarious fight between the DNC and OFA because Obama's going to extort the living hell out of the DNC for his donor list. And this is all the donor list that came from the cave, his ground game, and all of these small money donors. And the only way the DNC can avoid that is that they get their ass in gear and get the technology that Obama had. The problem is all of Obama's technology team has now gone to Ready for Hillary, which is not associated with the DNC. So now you might also have the DNC, or I'm sorry, Ready for Hillary extorting the DNC for their donor list. It's going to be amazing. It's really going to be great.
I have to point out something in the chat room. And thank you, Pope Sparkles, for saying, Rick Perry, Taylor, I'm disappointed. The answer is Pope Sparkles. And then I always forget, is the SMH, is that smack my head or shake my head? I guess it's whatever you want it to be. So I always see it as smack my head.
Either or.
Smack or shake. But sorry, Larry, you kind of wanted to jump in, so go ahead.
Well, my thing with it is that I read an article, I don't know, I think it was a month or two ago, and I really wish I would have saved it, that all of this fundraising money is not going to the DNC. It's going to OFA, and they're doling it out to the DNC. This is Obama building a bank account for the next 30 years of his life. They are going to stockpile OFA with money.
If you can find
their legalities,
and then they'll turn around. Oh, we're consultants, or we run OFA, right. So we can pull a 7-figure salary every year. This is the biggest. I mean, what do you call it? Fundraising scam there's been ever. I think.
Larry, if you can find that article, I'd be curious to see that. I really would be.
The other thing is he's out campaigning in places, but none of these Senate candidates are getting on. No candidates are getting on stage with him.
Well,
can't say that he's out there campaigning for these candidates.
No, like I said, there is an electoral red wedding coming. They know it. They all know it, and you're not going to as much as everybody wants that. Oh, we're fucked. They want that fucked moment from the DNC. You're not going to get it. And then, of course, because this is a fight that never ends, when it happens, it's going to be, obviously there were campaign tactics and the Koch brothers, and guess what? It won't freaking matter at that point. That's the only solace you can take. But no, they know it's coming. You have to understand, like when you look at the external pollings of what's happening on the ground, and when you look at Obama's poll numbers, you have to understand that whatever those are, they have internal polls that are probably much, much worse.
Oh, yes.
So you have to – I think that they know what's happening, and I think you're seeing Obama's actions dictated by that. That's
why he's staying away from anything.
And I think that's an interesting point, and you make an interesting point there because you hear a lot about how candidates don't want to be seen with Obama. They don't want to be seen with, which is racist, by the way. And you see this, but yeah, you make an interesting point, and I think I brought this up I contribute to Ricochet, and I brought this up, which was he doesn't want to be seen with them either. And he has no desire to go out there and campaign for them because I think he looks at this as a large rejection of who he is, and this is not something he's going to take lying down.
Well, and here's the funny thing is that you had Wendy Davis was like, I'll appear on stage with him if that's possible, and then what happened? She didn't appear on stage with him. They met in private. And of course nobody knows what they talked about. But you're right. I mean, this kind of happens.
I'm guessing that some point in time during Obama's Texas visit, this whole Rick Perry thing came up.
What?
I don't know. They were going after Rick.
Well, I mean, listen, the entire...
can't tell me Obama didn't know this was coming, or at least his people didn't know this was coming.
I don't think that they went after Rick. I think this is pure. I'm kind of with Taylor on this. I think
this is pure Texas.
This is pure Texas because I don't think. I don't think
saying that the Obama administration was well aware of what was about to come down on Rick Perry this last week.
I'm not going to go that far.
They were in the loop, at least.
I'm not going to go that far. I think that again, if they had been informed, I think you would have seen them be more involved. They would have made a comment by now about it, and the fact that the only people who are commenting on it are the Democratic Party commented on it. The Texas Democratic Party is trying to obviously make something of it. Heck, Wendy Davis hasn't even said something about it, and what does that say?
I think Hillary Clinton was more involved in it than Barack Obama because you have Vice President in waiting Castro, whose twin dreadnought brother is sending out tweets and pushing this issue. So I don't think that Obama cares about 2016 candidates. That's just my opinion.
I don't really do either, but I do get the opinion that I think Obama doesn't like to be showed up, and Rick has shown him up a couple of times.
I don't think he cares about it, though. That's kind of he doesn't have any reason to care anymore. He's not running again. He's not. I mean, if anything should show that he doesn't care about being showed up, like look at the signs in Ferguson over the last week, who say, Mr. Obama, quit being distracted, even though he's not even president, even though Romney is president, and I don't get that. Anyway,
just right across the river, he was the senator. You think he'd go do something?
Well, right, or just show up. But no, I don't think he cares about anything post 2016. I think when, like I like to call it, I think when the November Red Wedding happens, that's it. You're gonna see executive orders here and there. I think we're probably going to see something on immigration, probably a Supreme Court nominee. But I think that's it. I think that's done. He's going to be like, I'm going to fucking golf as much as I want. I don't care at this point.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to fly around
that's different from now.
Well, no, but that's Elizabeth. But you're right. He had a full House. He had a full Congress in 2009, and this is one of the things that is just astounding to me. Like, this is how I take it. When he goes out there and he slams the House of Representatives, does he even realize that those are our elected officials who were sent to Washington for a specific reason, which was to stop him? So the idea that he goes out and he slams the House, or he doesn't even recognize their governing authority. These weren't people appointed by just government officials. These were people voted on. So Obama's actually going out and he's insulting Americans who decided to go and use their vote. He's out there telling normal people that, hey, you sent your vote is illegitimate. How you think doesn't matter. So if you think that sending Republicans to the House or in this election year will be the Senate, it doesn't. Your vote does not matter. I mean, I don't know how else. This is a guy who targeted the same people with the IRS. So, again, you're right that it's.
Yeah.
But
well, if Romney is president of America, president of the United States, then I'm guessing that Obama must be the president of Turkey.
No, he's just the head of the World Bank now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I don't know if you caught that on Ricochet, because I was sitting there and I thought, oh, this is interesting. There was a really, soft pedal story about the president of Turkey. He sounded a heck of a lot nicer than he actually is. But the funny part was, you make a really nice description of a tyrant in Turkey, and it sounds a whole heck of a lot like Obama. Just saying.
Well, he is a tyrant. I just like to put it like a petty little tyrant. It sounds better than going like, he's a tyrant. It's more fun to like kind of just jab it, like poke him like you're flicking his ear, you petty little tyrant.
Well, I think he would love to be Vladimir Putin. He would love to have the popularity of Vlad and be able to do whatever he wants.
Well, but no, you saw, what was it? The Economist was laughing with him, and he basically called. He literally came out and said, Congress, I have to deal with the hindrance of Congress. And Economist said, you'd rather be a dictator. And there was like a ha 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 ha. They all had these laughs, and it was just kind of like, wow, guys. But if you see the attitude of the media, they're the same way. They're just like, Congress is a problem here, and it's like, you idiots, you don't realize that Congress is supposed to be the problem here. But it doesn't matter because Unfortunately, the greatest thing about these assholes in media, network media, and Huffington Post and Politico and all this is they have one vote and it counts just as much as yours. So,
yeah.
I don't know about that because, unfortunately, they've got a lot of these people that actually do what they tell them to. So, yeah. I'm going to hold out on sitting there saying that they only have one vote because, unfortunately, there are a bunch of, really stupid people that think that they know what the media people are, or agree with what the media people are saying and just go and vote according to what the media people say. So that's a problem.
One of the funniest tweets I have seen tonight, by the way, to completely change the subject, was by Lauren Luxemburg, who tweeted an hour ago, "My Uber driver is making fun of Limburg. This is fantastic." And she's in Austin. How much of a joke is the Rick Perry indictment? That much.
But that's what I said. That's what's been so great about the response to this is like everybody has just brought out their A game for this. It's just like everybody is just like taking the right approach to this one. There's no like seriousness. There's no outrage. It's all just ridiculing the hell out of this thing. And I mean, I've written it before. Ridicule is 10 times more effective than outrage. It works so much better. And yeah, it's like if people in Texas, this is probably going to be the first time a governor was indicted where his approval ratings are going to go up.
Well, the New York Times is attempting to, shocking, it shouldn't be. The New York Times is attempting to spin this by writing this story, which is going to be, which was published late this evening. Indictment of Perry raises debate over which party is abusing power. Really?
Oh, okay, but that's the New York Times. So of course the New York Times is going to do that. And wait a second, here's my other great thing. You said that this was just a late evening release?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So who at 8 p.m. on a Friday night was paying attention to the news when Rick Perry was indicted? Probably nobody. Who the living hell is reading a late edition of the New York Times on a Saturday night, except for us. But we're fully Lemberged here, so we don't count. But that's my point. That was almost the other thing about when the Lemberg or when the Perry indictment came down. You could almost feel how just like gritting the teeth, like the progressive media was when riots broke out in Ferguson, because they were basically buried by their own narrative. These are the people that elevated Ferguson to the front pages of everything across the country and splash pages and front page websites, and these are where we need the clicks to go. And then the Perry indictment comes out, and they're like, "Oh, this is a guy who has basically done nothing but told Obama to go screw himself for the last 3 months on immigration." And now we have an indictment. And so they're like, we got to get this out. And then as soon as that happened, people started throwing Molotov cocktails in Ferguson. So they were like, what do we do? Are we going to go with the Perry thing? Or, oh, crap, we're all in Ferguson. Nobody's in Austin. We're all in Ferguson. Chris Hayes just ran by me with his tie around his head throwing a Molotov cocktail. So I guess we have to go cover this now. And that was the other thing about this. So, guys, again, the media made Ferguson about them, so this is going to be the story. Nobody's paying attention to the Perry indictment. So the New York Times they're going to get to their audience, but people need to realize the New York Times is Think Progress with a bigger, prettier newsroom, and not even that so much anymore with how far their sales have dropped. So, I mean, the New York Times is great. It's influential where I live, but I don't know too many people in Texas who are going to elect Wendy Davis over what's happening to Rick Perry.
Yeah, they'll probably elect Wendy Davis. Forget it. I'm not going into that.
Don't. I have the pink tennis shoes that can kick ass, and they will.
Well, okay. Thank you, Liz Harrison, for being on this edition of Saturday Night Cigar Lounge. I'll talk to you. No, just kidding.
Yeah, seriously, dude, abort her.
Really? Wow. The love that I have with people who are theoretically colleagues.
No. No.
I'm sorry. You've been here past 20 weeks. You need to go.
This is Saturday Night Cigar Lounge. I'm your host, Taylor Millard. Stephen Miller, a.k.a. Red Steez, is here. The boss, Liz Harrison, is here. And I think P-Dog is still on the line.
P-Dog,
are you there?
I just was enjoying the conversation.
I was just making sure you hadn't passed out.
We thought maybe you went full Lemberg.
No, I was actually digging for that story that I'd mentioned.
Oh, okay.
Thought maybe we had to put a spit hood on you, just making sure.
No, I've done that twice before. Not this.
No, my paranoia that has always been about the entire Wendy Davis thing is, for one, she's got the media on her side. I mean, they put out a story.
No, she doesn't.
Huh?
Sorry, go ahead, but no, she doesn't.
She does here in Texas.
Okay, well, really, she has the media on her side in Texas.
Yeah. Or the Dallas Morning News, at least, on her side.
Okay, so one newspaper who did what was the thing with them just a couple months ago where they killed a story, or they had to retract a story about her, or it was like the columnist had to come out and bash another columnist over her trips back east, or there was something about that. But I mean, no, the media is not. I mean, okay, I'm not in Texas, so I'm going to take your word for it.
Yeah, no, there are definitely some members of the media who are on her side, or if they aren't on her side, they're not on Greg Abbott's side.
Yeah, I mean, when Wendy Davis is angling for a television show at this point, and I mean, I thought maybe she'd make a good Today Show host, but then Santa Guthrie did that evil thing and had a baby, so clearly the Today Show is out.
I'm so glad that you have more confidence than I do. I think everybody here has more confidence than I do. But what happened earlier, and this is an example of deceptive news writing, and this is why I say that I'm worried about this. So earlier this week, in fact, a few days ago, a story was written by Christy Hopp of the Dallas Morning News, Hoppy, however you want to call it, who, with the headline, which said, Abbott cited against other victims of sexual assault. That's what the headline said. Abbott cited against other victims of sexual assault. And then you go and you read the story, and it points out that in a few cases, Abbott did rule against them. But he ruled against them within the context of the law, and he was absolutely correct for doing this. Here's what you look at, okay? You had a case in 1999 where an on-duty Houston police officer abducted and raped a woman early in the morning in an unattended parking garage. So the woman sued the parking garage, saying that it didn't take any precautions against criminal activity. Now, this is what Abbott said. All right, he said here that the owners could have foreseen the potential of rape on their property, but the victim could not sue because property owners don't have a universal duty to protect uninvited people. That's true. That's very true. Then in another case, he said he and other justices rule, and by the way, he's ruling in the majority here, all right? He and other justices said that a young woman couldn't sue her father because she was 4 months past the 2-year statute of limitations. I hate to say it, because I'm sorry she got raped. I think it was horrible. But if the 2-year statute of limitation had run out, she can't sue. And the way you solve the problem is you change the law, which is eventually what happened. The legislature changed the law. But here's the issue that you run into, though, is that's not how the article is put together. The article is put together as, oh my gosh, Abbott cited against other victims of sex assault. Blah. And then they kind of go, yeah, but he was kind of right. So...
Yeah, but didn't you say that the Dallas Morning News was essentially acting like Wendy Davis's press office?
Yes.
And didn't it dawn on you that anybody who's annoyed with Wendy Davis would have figured that out?
I don't know.
Yes, no, maybe. I'm guessing yes. And basically, if the Dallas Morning News keeps on doing this, I'm curious to see, have you been paying attention to their statistics lately? How's their readership doing?
I have no idea.
Maybe you want to look into that.
Yeah, Taylor, maybe you want to look into that.
Because, you know, maybe they're suffering the same declining numbers that, you know, the New York Times is.
I'm kind of kidding. I think Liz is on is like, what? I think you need to look at polls. Is really Texas, is Wendy Davis really like closing the gap here?
Because even the polls are questionable at this point.
The last poll that came out, the last poll that came out was about a week ago, and it was a Rasmussen report poll of 850 likely voters, which said that Abbott was ahead by 8.
Okay.
Yeah,
now, a week before that, somebody said, or CBS, New York Times, and YouGov put out a poll which had Abbott up by 17.
Okay, wait a second. Stop. What was that? What were the sources of that last poll you just stated?
CBS, New York Times, and YouGov.
I rest my case.
Exactly. Rasmussen was using a far too small sample.
Okay.
So, yeah, I as soon as I saw 850 polled, I would have put that one in the circular foul. Just saying.
Texas Barb just tweeted me, or at Tex Barb just tweeted me. Yeah, Taylor, you maybe you want to look into that. Thank you for listening, Tex Barb. Why aren't you in the chat room?
Yeah, because basically, I'm curious. I really am. I want to know how good the Dallas Daily News or Morning
Dallas
News
Morning
is doing.
News.
Yeah, I want to know how good they're doing. I want to know whether or not they are starting to get hit in the pocketbook, because I guarantee they probably are. Because I'm sorry, this is Texas.
All right.
And she's disgusting. I'm sorry. I cannot buy that Texans, regardless of their political leanings, are going to be all right with the concept of putting a woman whose claim to fame is putting in a catheter so that she could talk for hours on end, defending killing essentially maybe 6 weeks away from a viable baby. Because I believe, I have to double check, that the city of Pittsburgh here, we have Children's Hospital, they're calling viable at 26 weeks.
Folks who are wondering, first-time listeners who may have never listened to Saturday Night Cigar Lounge before, and there are plenty. Welcome. Hope you come for next week. I do tend to be overly paranoid and an Eeyore when it comes to the Texas governor's race. Now, and I'm going to say this: I like Greg Abbott. I am more than likely voting for Greg Abbott. The only reason I say more than likely is I try not to reveal my ballot. I try. Don't always succeed. I like Greg Abbott. I think he'd be a great governor. But the issue that I have is I just see all these people who are sitting there going, oh my gosh, Wendy Davis, Wendy Davis, Wendy Davis. And I've seen a lot more Wendy Davis stickers here in Dallas, 7, than I have Greg Abbott stickers, 1. Now, to be fair, I wouldn't be surprised if Abbott supporters were a little bit more vocal. Davis's supporters were a little bit more vocal than Abbott supporters were. I mean, remember all the people who went nuts for Howard Dean?
How far are you from a university?
These were like women who had them. Like
No. How far are you from a university?
Keep talking, guys. I'm currently fighting with a Rolling Stone editor. Keep going.
Rolling Stone editors are fun. Seriously,
gosh.
You're near a college campus.
I am near a college campus.
What do college people do? They put stupid ass stickers on their goddamn cars because they don't know any better. And what do people who work for their living and are, conservative, do they think very highly of their vehicles? Do you see a lot of vehicles running around, the area, the nicer vehicles that have any stickers on them? See, no. I've said this to you before.
Yeah, I know.
I'm sorry. Unless you're talking about the redneck good old boys, conservatives, by and large, don't sit there and plaster stickers on the backs of their vehicles.
Oh, okay. Wait.
I was
particularly
we're going to move from Texas politics.
They don't have room because of the get her done stickers.
Exactly.
We're gonna leave Texas politics for a second. All right. Or
the little boy peeing on whatever.
I think I'm at about a 2.5 right now, or 2.5.
Okay. So wait a second. Sam Adams, this is the Rolling Stone editor we're talking about, right? Samuel Adams. Steven?
Hey man, quit stalking my feed. That's kind of creepy.
He said. He said that the heads of Ferguson PD need to be relieved of their command immediately
because they disobeyed the wishes of the Department of Justice. Hold on. This is my thing. Here's a guy who writes for a music, punk rock and roll magazine.
Alleged.
Alleged. Oh, well, I mean, they haven't been a music magazine since they put NSYNC on the cover and called them a band. We're all in agreement, but I'm willing to stipulate what their existence is. So yeah, they need to be relieved because they released a video that the media demanded be released.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So then he says to me, freedom of information should have started with releasing the officer's name 6 days ago. So we have the officer's name. So my question to him is, so now you're for releasing information? Like in the span of 20 minutes? I mean, Jesus Christ, these people. Now I'm like, it's fun to, and that's just what I tweeted. It's fun to watch a journalist who writes for a punk rock magazine defend the Department of Justice of the United States. Bob Dylan would be proud. These people. Gee, oh God.
That's perfect. But seriously, I mean, really, come on now. The video had to come out. There's no question about that. Of course, the liberal media doesn't want it out there because it brings into question the whole character of the individual who was killed. And they definitely don't want that.
We have an entire corporate media structure blaming riots on a video.
Yeah. What's new? What is new with this? It doesn't matter on what shore this happens.
Here's the thing, though, with all of that. I do think that Ferguson police should have released the information sooner than they did. I really do. I really think they should have released that information sooner than they did. Whether it was the name of the no. Whether it was the name of the cop, whether it was the video, I think they should have done it. But probably one of the reasons why
I think President Romney needs to get back from Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah, Romney needs to get back, but no. I'm sorry, the officer was injured. There ain't a chance in hell that I would want to see that name released before they were certain that individual was reasonably safe and secure. And you do not, I repeat, do not ever go and put out the name of an officer that has been injured when you have an uproar like this, because Lord forbid that person has to be in a hospital. Can you say nightmare? I mean, my
you don't
God,
say what
Taylor.
No. You don't say what hospitals he's in.
It's 11, guys. It's 11:30 on the East Coast. Let's just throw this shit out there. Let's just go crazy. Okay, I want everybody's honest assessment of what happened, starting with the robbery to the point where Michael Brown was shot. Everybody go. Starting with you, Liz, because you're left to right on my Skype screen. Go.
Okay, basically what I think happened is that essentially the Ferguson police screwed up from point one, but not in the way that the liberal media is saying. They shouldn't have released the information on the officer at all. They should have told Anonymous where to go, and they should have gone and hung them high to dry.
No. I'm saying, what do you think actually happened? Let's set this fucker on fire. What do you think actually happened? Go.
I think that the kid strong-armed the person in the store. I think that he was out walking in the middle of the street, caught the attention of the officer because the kid was an idiot. And basically, I think that there was a scuffle in the car. The kid tried to get the weapon. The weapon went off. Nobody got injured. What I don't know and what I don't believe is that the kid held his hands up in surrender. I don't believe that, because in this age where we have so many videos beyond the dash cams showing that, police brutality, I cannot believe that there were so many witnesses claiming that he had his hands up and then he was shot. Where
okay, cool.
were the freaking cameras?
Okay, Taylor, you're next. Go. What happened?
I have no idea. I'm going to be 100%. I have no idea.
Okay, make something up. Go.
Okay, I think that unicorns came down and took over the world, and harmony isn't happening. No, I think...
Okay, Larry, go.
First, there's this little grassy knoll over to the side.
Line of the night.
Mm-hmm. Actually, Dana Lash had a caller that claimed to be a friend of the spouse of the police officer. And she gave a pretty vivid account of what happened. Now, I don't know if... Dana was really kind of reluctant to even put it out there, but...
Yeah, because it wasn't confirmed.
Right, but she kind of... she confirmed it as much as she could.
Yeah.
And listening to the lady talk, it sounded like she knew what she was talking about.
All right.
Fair enough.
Steven, what do you think?
She said that the guy...
Oh, go ahead, Larry.
For the most part, bum rushed the cop. That after the altercation in the car, they started walking down the street, got about 50 foot away, and by that time he had gotten out of his car and asked them to stop and pulled his weapon, which in turn Michael Brown supposedly yelled something about, "You ain't gonna shoot me," and started running back at the police officer. And if that's the case, then cop had every right to shoot him.
Yeah, if that's the case. We're not going to know. I don't think we're going to know everything that happened there. And I wish there was video. I wish there was video evidence that we had out there. I wish that there was more video evidence out there that we had that we could see that. If that happened, Larry, if that happened, then there ought to be dash cam video of that.
Well, there should be dash cam videos, but the reason why there isn't dash cam video is that the police department in Ferguson decided to spend money on large military type weaponry instead of
for heaven's sake.
Okay. Now let's see. Now what Larry just said, I'm sitting here thinking that I may have been on the right track here for one reason and one reason only, because I'm sorry, I am still not buying if you have that many witnesses that nobody pulled out a camera, nobody got even a still shot of what was going on. So there should have been somebody that came forward. There should have, and it would have been by now. I guarantee you it would have been, because if it hadn't gone to the police, I guarantee you it would have gone to the Inquirer, because they would have gotten paid for it. So since nobody is making big bucks for releasing something to a tabloid that showed that what all these activists are saying really happened, I'm saying it didn't. I really am. At this point, I am saying the officer story, what came to Dana Lash, is probably the truth. That's the best we're going to get. And the fact that there is no video evidence from any of these yahoos that are saying that they saw otherwise is the proof that that's how it went down. Because if they had been there, there is no freaking way they wouldn't have been pulling out their iPhones and going and capturing it.
All right, Steven, what do you think happened?
What do I think happened?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Can you hear my music?
No, I can't.
Oh, we can't hear music. Oh, I was gonna like put on some music, and I was putting on "Do You Believe in Magic" by the Lovin' Spoonful, and I think they were holding hands, and they were just they went into the store, which was a candy store, and they all they wanted was like a snow cone because it's hot. It's freaking hot. It's August. Tempers are up, and so they went into a store. They went into a candy store, and they were just asking the guy for some snow cones, and the guy was out of snow cones. And who doesn't get upset when you go for something like a snow cone and it's hot outside and you get told there's no snow cones, and you're like, what do you mean there's no snow cones? Everybody gets upset in that kind of situation. Hell, even I've grabbed like a 4-foot tall Indian guy when they didn't have the snow cone flavor I wanted, and I think they left the store and they were angry that they didn't get what they wanted, and then I think all of a sudden like dark clouds moved in, and there was just like a rumble in the sky, and all of a sudden, over the hill came this giant monster truck, and it had a siren on the top of it. And the siren was just like, the sound of a person just screaming, "Wah!" And the tires had spikes on them and everything like this. And then it like screeched into the street. And the cop got out, and the cop was wearing like one of those executioner hoods from the old like medieval times, and he had a giant axe on it. And he's saying, "You stop!" And like the kid was just like, "I don't know what's going on," and and all of a sudden, it was just all of this crazy stuff of darkness happening, and everything just turned to the worst possible nightmares. And then the kid ended up dead, and now the country's ending, and that's where we're at. So that's what I think happened. It sounded better with the loving spoonful behind it, I promise.
So you had Judge Dredd show up, basically.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
You know what? I'm not going to lie. I was just trying to instigate you guys. That's kind of my attitude about what happened, because it doesn't freaking matter. And the kind of the point I was trying to make is like by everybody getting to speculate, every single one of you could be a Washington Post or a Salon writer right now.
Oh, good God.
By the way,
Please kill me
Jay
now.
Breen in the chat room said, I think Plaxico Burress and the Illuminati are both involved. Or he thinks it's a Putin scheme to slowly weaken us from within.
You laugh at that shit, but there are Russians flying drones in Missouri right now. So if you think that's funny, I'm not laughing.
Okay.
Oh, they're working for the mainstream media, so why not?
Well, it's RT. It's pretty much the same thing.
No. BuzzFeed, I think it was.
Yeah. Oh, good.
And it wasn't
I was kind of... 36 reasons why Mike Brown wasn't looking for a snow cone.
It wasn't a snow cone. It was a Slurpee.
Oh, okay.
You know what? Anybody who's
it was an Indian convenience store guy.
Yeah, really. You got to have your Slurpee.
Do we know he was Indian?
I mean, Joe Biden says that, that's where you get your Slurpee.
There you go. I think this is all on Joe Biden. You know what? If they want to indict Rick Perry, we're going to indict Joe Biden over this shit. Because Joe Biden is a real threat for 2016. We need to deal with him.
I really do find that entire thing that he does plan to run in 2016 amusing.
I'm pretty sure I hit .229 at Monster Truck.
Don't go driving, Stephen.
Oh, driving. I live in New York. If you think there's a monster truck that can fit anywhere on a street in New York City, no.
Yeah, that's not happening.
It would
Cars
be
are a liability.
It would be amazing to try.
Yeah. Well, as long as you don't mind going and destroying several cars in the process, who cares? A la Gravedigger.
I don't know. I think the point is, we're at such an obnoxious point thanks to these clowns at the Washington Post and the HuffPost. Where, like, why not? Everybody should just throw out like the craziest theory about what happened, and just get 12 people on a jury going, that's right. I believe that. And that's just where that's where we're headed. So let's just freaking do it. Let's just everybody throw out like their theory. I'm not in the chat room. But whoever's in the chat room, throw out like your craziest theories about what actually happened. And maybe Taylor like we'll read them or tweet them or whatever.
We do have 10 minutes left, so put them up
well,
quickly.
whatever. Yeah, hurry up, because this is the point: is you have a media sitting there in Ferguson who thinks they have this all figured out, and then the first night comes around that proves that they have it all figured out. They don't have it figured out. So, I mean, we might as well. We have nothing to lose. This is the thing on like people. You know, we have that group think, and this goes back to kind of Catharsis, who's just throwing out her own thoughts, and then she gets like the mob on her. First of all, leave her alone. She's awesome. Don't get on her. Okay? Stop that. Aim left, folks. Aim left. Catharsis is allowed to have any theory about James O'Keefe or Twitchy or whatever she's allowed to have. Okay? Aim left. Come on.
Yeah.
Now that I got that out, thanks. What I'm saying is that any theory you have in the chat room or on Twitter or anything is probably no freaking crazier than anything the HuffPost or Politico or the Washington Post is pushing about the brave citizen police force called the New Black Panthers. So just throw it out there. I mean, just come on. This is just getting to the point of ridiculous. And what's getting lost is suddenly this is about 2 reporters getting arrested in McDonald's and not a dead black kid in the street.
Oh, good God.
It's so fun, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
One thing that you have to take into account with all of this, have you ever noticed that these things happen in August?
Well, yeah.
Because there's no Washington, D.C. to play with. The media needs something to report on. And this is their August story. It just seems like every August, that was why they jumped on Hurricane Katrina so bad. Because it was August. There was nothing else to report on.
Well, that, and it was a Category 5 hurricane. But, I mean, I see I get what you're saying. It's kind of like, it's bored. We got to do something. I think what happened in Ferguson is a legitimate issue that goes back to basically – we have I think where this all stemmed from is we had another Trayvon Martin on our hands. I think that's what all of this came to, was we have a Trayvon Martin on our hands. We have another dead black kid, and we have another person who was law enforcement or part of the law. And it turns out this is nothing like Trayvon Martin, because Trayvon Martin actually paid for his shit. We can't have dead. We can't.
It took a second for me to realize it, but I was like, I get what you're saying now.
You can't have dead air after a line like that. You got to kind of chime in. But no,
I was like, wait, Trayvon, what did he mean by? Oh,
no, Trayvon. That's what this is for the media. It's like we have another race crime, and now we need President Romney, Obama, to chime in, and we need his thoughts on this. And you know what? And maybe he'll do it after he pours a bucket of ice over his head, because we really need to see that.
Yes. All right. So a couple of theories. One from Jabrin again. Oliver Willis and Anthony Weiner have learned of another set of Weiner-Wang shots and are collaborating with police in Ferguson to keep the media preoccupied with riots to minimize the effects of pictures on Wieners, and are collaborating with police in Ferguson to keep the media preoccupied with riots to minimize the effects of pictures on Wiener's new restaurant. Why, O. Willis? Why not?
Wait, what was the name? Who was the chat name
Jay
user
Bren.
who said that? Who?
Jay Bren.
Jay Brand, you won at Anthony Weiner, and Oliver Willis. You should have stopped right there.
SithCon. The 2 youths were assisting the local retired piano teacher across the street and were fending off a skinhead attack when the patrol car drove by and made a snap judgment.
Impossible. There were no white people in Ferguson until Chris L. Hayes and Politico.
Oh. I saw that picture of Chris Hayes interviewing the guy, and he looks like, I'm going to smack you silly.
No, you saw John Gabriel's meme on that, right?
Yes.
Oh, God. It's just like, I don't have words for how much I love John. That was just so brilliant. It was, and even Chris Hayes responded to him. He's like, LOL. It's like, yeah, dude, LOL. Billie Holiday, you go. Idiot.
All right, we just got a few minutes left. So, Prairie Dog, where can we find you?
At Prairie Dog SD on Twitter, Larry Hedman on Facebook, and at the Free Radical Network. And I was going to say, J. Brand could be arrested for too many snarks per hour there.
Liz, well, we can find you here. We know that. And we can find you at Goldwater Gal. We can also find you...
She's gone, dude. She's rioting.
She's
no,
rioting.
I'm not rioting. I am not rioting. I have to, go back to Ricochet and start looking at what Steven writes there to go and snark on it appropriately. But,
I kind of like I didn't do one for Ricochet this week because I was up all night doing the one for President Romney. But yeah, I'm a little bit less snarkful at Ricochet. One of my favorite things is I wrote a great piece about just how I expanded on John Gabriel's theory of how humorless the left is, and I wanted to take it a bit further. That the reason that because they're not they can't make people laugh and they don't have a sense of humor, they have to turn to shock value. So I kind of was like going down the list of like why Jesse C. Lee from the Obama administration is turning his guns on Michelle Bachmann making sexual references. And so I was doing this piece and I had to do one about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and it was the best editorial conversation I've ever had at Ricochet, because the original line I had about Ruth Bader Ginsburg was the last time that she used birth control, it involved 4 sticks of dynamite and a canary.
Good God. I give up.
So I had this whole conversation with the editors about Ricochet. Like, what if I just make it about this or that? And it was kind of like going back and forth. But they liked it. But so I have to be a little bit more restrained on Ricochet. But you're free to go and read. I still like. I mean, no, they're awesome. I'm not criticizing them by any means. Like, they actually let me get. That was the only thing that they made me edit, and I was like telling you, I'm like, there's no way this is going to pass the smell test. I'm screwed. But no, that was the only line they edited out. And it was my favorite one, but, they're the boss. And I'm thankful that they let me write there.
You can also find Steven online at
I'm at The Wilderness and also contributed to Ricochet. And you can also find me at Sally Cohn.
Okay. And do read thewilderness.me.
Yes, please
read thewilderness.me, even if it talks about President Romney for some reason.
You know what? I think he's let us all down on this one. We took a chance. I think he needs to get his act together. We have 2 more years. And then we have an election, and if he doesn't get his shit together, we're looking at, a President Cory Booker or a President Elizabeth Warren. So I really do think Mr. Romney needs to pull it together and stop this rich 1%er stuff.
Okay. You can find Liz at Goldwater Gal. We can also find her Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday nights, and the occasional Saturday night here on Vigilant Liberty Radio. Wednesday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern. She co-hosts The Right War with me. That also can be heard at FTR Radio. We encourage everyone to be at the FTR Radio chat when that happens. Then on Friday night, you can find her at 11 p.m. Eastern right here doing the Conservative Feminist Show with Mariah Joven. I said it right.
Do I actually do that show, or do I just show up to push buttons and make sure that they don't talk too much about vibrators?
Both.
You can never talk too much about vibrators.
But we do choose our floggers wisely, and usually we don't hurt people with them.
And Missy Allen Bordius is also on that show. You can follow.
She's going to hurt you for calling her that. Just saying.
What?
Missy Allen. Really?
Isn't it? Or is it Callum?
No, it's Missy Callan-born Bordius, and yeah. Allen is her husband's name.
Okay.
So
Missy
that's a bit much. Missy Bordius.
No, it wasn't on
Mariah Joven.
Yes, and Mariah Joven. You can
and of course you can find me also at realraw.us. And basically, I was being told in the chat room that they're not sure. Someone is not sure why I let them write there. No, I'm not a glutton for punishment. Although some people have said that because, you know, what is it, 2 nights in a row with you, Taylor? And then I show up on Saturdays occasionally.
Yes, yes. We have only a minute left. You can find me at EYE Desert Blog. That's at EYE Desert Blog. Feel free to listen, to comment, to come, at me with stuff if you want. If you disagree with me, that's perfectly fine. I'm okay with that. Monday is Alan Bordius' show, Their Finest Hour. Tuesday is the Round Table of Extreme Liberty with Alan Bordius and Crystal Schoonveld. Wednesday, Modern Comment Show at 10 p.m. Eastern, followed by Right War at 11 p.m. Thursday, Dustin Hoyt and America Our Way at 10 p.m. Eastern. You do want to listen to that show. It's a great show. Plus, Right War after that. Conservative Feminist Show on Fridays at 11 p.m. Eastern. And then me on Saturdays, and you're caught up. Thanks again, guys. We'll catch you next week.
This show is copyright by VLR Media. All opinions of hosts, panelists, and guests are their own and may not reflect the opinion of VLR Media or anyone else.